over the weekend.
Justin.
Fields to the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll discuss that and get into that a little bit coming up a little bit later on in the show. We're also going to discuss some Texas football. Of course, we are 1 day away from spring football officially starting on the 40 acres. Since that is the case, we'll go behind the burnt orange curtain, talk spring football, also talk about the guys coming up in the NFL draft. There's still a lot of buzz about the draft stock of the Longhorns, so we'll get into that when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. Raj rant of the day could be a number of different things that I'm pondering in Raj rant of the day. I'm thinking about going a certain direction. If we get into it during this normal discussion, then I may pivot. But we're going to talk about the quarterbacks in the NFL. We might dive into that when we go into Raj rant of the day. Before we get started, let's introduce the real MVP, the co-host of the Rodcast. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. I don't know what he's paid. I'm pretty damn sure that this man is underpaid. He is a hustle man of many talents, and ain't no 401k for this hustler. He is Patrick Davis, my friend, neighbor, and co-host. What's going on, brother? How are you?
I'm doing good. I had a couple green beers yesterday for St. Patrick's Day.
Hey.
Feeling good. And then we got to the office today, and then apparently somebody was doing construction somewhere else in the office building.
Oh, no.
And we have no overhead lights in the studios today.
Oh.
So
hey,
when the sun comes up, we'll be able to see a little bit better. And but we're making it through.
I thought you was going for a vibe. I thought that was the vibe.
No, it is not the vibe. There is no. We came in and there was a note on the door that says, "Sorry, we broke your lights. We'll fix them." And it's like, cool, but it's we're on the air in the morning, right? Luckily, we have power to everything else, so we're doing good. We're on the air.
At least they left a note. I'm gonna say that's better than what you usually get. At least they left a note. Usually,
me just flipping the switch up and down, just seeing if it works.
You're just like, what the hell is going on? You calling? Did we pay the bill? What's going on?
My co-host is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He's the new Rod father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro as always. As well, my man Patrick will bring you the Horn headlines coming up a little bit later on in the show and get us informed and updated on all the big stories of the day. But of course, the biggest story of the day, one of the biggest, will be the Longhorns in March Madness and their seeding already. Congrats to the ladies. They got a 1 seed. That is, considering what the women have been through this year, losing your best player and your best leader in Rory Harmon. And obviously Madison Booker is amazing, so not taking anything away from her. But it's a little heartbreaking just because, if they had both, they had and I'm not saying they don't have a chance. They got it. Obviously, they get that 1 seed.
Yeah.
But I mean, they would be like saying they're a favorite to be tough because there are a lot of great women's basketball teams, but Longhorn fans would feel a whole lot better if they had both of those fantastic players. But the Longhorn women get a 1 seed, so congrats to them, man. That was big time.
Yeah, it's big. And I mean, there's something to be said of, when you hear great sports stories, it really galvanized the team going through that and having basically everyone not believe in them anymore. We're a team where, when you're Texas and you're playing in the Big 12 and now Baylor's not the power they used to be, there's a lot more, you have a lot of expectations, but maybe, you can't have that underdog mentality and you can't have that mentality you need to have to keep yourself in the game. And, what it takes sometimes is not the best, but Roy Harmon going down put them in the right mindset where they were not playing with house money anymore. They felt they had to go prove everything every night, and that's what they've done all season long.
In desperation mode.
And now to get the number 1 seed to go in and show the hard work you've done and get the easiest path you can get to a championship is kind of what you want to be. And Vic Schaefer is going to go in there and try and get it done.
Oh, man. Vic Schaefer's pregame speech. They got to get on that. So somebody get a camera up in there. LHN, somebody, man. That's going to be nice because I know he's going to be pumped up. He's been pumped up all year. To your point, they've been going off. They kind of switched mindsets. He talked about it. I think he compared it to open heart surgery at one time, compared it to Apollo 13 at one time. Oh, he's going to have a hell of an analogy ready for the tournament, the pregame speech. I don't know what it's going to be, but I got to tell you, it's going to be something nice. The men, before, and we'll dive deeper, obviously, after Horn headlines here, but they get the 7 seed in the tournament. Patrick, your thoughts? Because the seems the projections were 9 seed, somewhere around there, 8 seed, the 7 seed. Why did they get the bump?
So they were an 8 seed, pretty much, and everybody. A couple of people knocked them down to 9. I think the reality was people who just didn't want to give the benefit of the doubt for a Texas team. They said, okay, well, if we're going to go Big 12, how many Big 12 teams are we putting in? They didn't necessarily have all the quad one wins. However, I think that the committee just looked at their schedule. They were competitive in most of their games. There wasn't a ton of blowouts throughout the season. There were games where they lost and they had comebacks. You look at the injuries, you look at them getting healthy at the right time right now, it appears. Other than Brock Cunningham's hand, he still got the brace on that. You look at a lot of factors. They believe they can do some damage when you get in. And I mean, in reality, when you looked across the board, there were certain conferences and teams that they just kind of ranked a little bit lower than everybody thought. And Texas is the recipient of that. That 2 or 3 teams that were thought to be a 6 or 7 seed dropped down to 8 or 9 seeds, and Texas jumped right up into that 7 seed. So I think it was a little bit less of what Texas did, and they were roughly on the 8 seed line. And a couple of teams that people thought would have been ranked higher were moved down due to like Iowa State is now, they were still ahead of them at number 2, but teams that didn't schedule heavy non-conference, they took that into extreme account of if you did not play anybody non-conference, you weren't playing ranked teams non-conference, you're not getting a good seed, because they want to send the message you have to play a tough non-conference because they want to make the game better. They want to make games more entertaining earlier in the season. So they really punish teams who did not schedule a good non-conference. Texas scheduled a good enough non-conference. You played in the tournament where you played Louisville and UConn back-to-back. That'll help you move up. So I think that those teams that didn't play big non-conference got bumped down and punished, bumped Texas up to a 7 seed, which helps you out because it means if you do win that first game, you're not playing the 1 seed. You're not going up against Purdue and Zach Edey and the player of the year in round 2. You'd be going up against Tennessee and Rick Barnes and a good team there as well. But I feel I'd rather play Tennessee than Purdue.
Different. Yeah, I was going to say different monster altogether.
But you got to get there too. Let's before cart before the horse on that one.
Yeah, no, I know I'm with you on that, and we'll get into that. We'll get into who the Longhorns could possibly play in that first round matchup, because they're going to play the winner of the first 4 matchup.
Yes,
we'll talk about coming up after the Horn headlines. We also got the big fat poll of the day. Don't forget about that. That's coming up at 6:45. Man, Patrick always entertaining with the big fat poll of the day, and I believe there is a musically themed day of the week on Monday.
Smooth Soul
Monday. Yes, that's right. All right. So we'll get to that too coming up a little bit later on the show. We got a lot to dive into. Let's not waste any time. My man Patrick always hooks us up. Make sure that we're updated and informed with the Horn headlines. So let's get that done, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss a little bit more detail who the Longhorns may face and as that 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. But Patrick, do us a favor and hit us up with the Horn headlines, please.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Both the men's and women's NCAA tournament brackets were set yesterday. The men's number 1 seeds are UConn, Houston, Purdue, and North Carolina. Texas received the 7 seed in the Midwest and will await the winner of Tuesday's Colorado State and Virginia game to find out their opponent for Thursday's first-round game in Charlotte. The Longhorn women earned their first number 1 seed since 2004, along with other 1 seeds, South Carolina, Iowa, and USC. Texas will start the tournament against Drexel on Friday afternoon. Texas softball finished off BYU in a doubleheader on Friday with a 7-3 win, followed by another run rule 10-0 win in 5 innings to close out the series. They will be back in action on Wednesday for another top 20 matchup in Tallahassee against Florida State. Texas baseball lost their series to Washington over the weekend 2-1 with a 4-3 series salvaging win on Sunday in a game shortened to 8 innings due to rain. LeBaron Johnson Jr. posted his best start of the season, pitching 6 innings with only 1 earned run and 10 strikeouts. However, poor performance from the bullpen would cost Texas. On Saturday, Ace Whitehead pitched 7 innings in relief, only allowing 1 hit, but Texas could not rally. And then on Sunday, Texas wins the final game. Texas will take on Air Force in a mini-series starting Tuesday in Austin. In the NBA, the Spurs split their 2 games played at the Moody Center this weekend, losing to the Nuggets on Friday and then getting an overtime win against the Nets, 122-115, where Wembanyama put up 33 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 blocks. The Houston Rockets won their matchup against a struggling Cavs team on Saturday, keeping them just 3.5 games out of the play-in tournament. And the Mavericks knocked off the Nuggets with a Kyrie Irving buzzer beater, 107-105. The Mavs and Spurs will meet up on Tuesday. And in the PGA, Scottie Scheffler won the Players' Championship, coming from 5 strokes back at the start of the final round. Scheffler posted a 20-under for the tournament to become the first ever back-to-back winner in the 50 years of the event. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Let's talk about the possible matchup for the Longhorns. We don't know exactly who it's going to be, but as you pointed out, the men will face. The women are facing Drexel, I
Drexel,
believe.
yes.
And that's, I mean, 1 versus 16. So we can
and
dive into it.
and we can say too, 1 versus 16 in women's basketball is different than 1 versus 16 in men's basketball, just because the talent level when you get down to those it's a much wider gap. That Texas is just kind of bigger players, stronger players, better players. Once you get into that second, third round for women's tournaments, it'll start to pick up. But that first round, if you're a 1 seed, should be a pretty easy game for them. In the men's tournament, though, there was an upset a couple years ago for 1 seed.
Very true. Good
or a
point
year
on
last
that.
year, I think, actually.
No, that's a good point. It was recently. But they're gonna. You pointed out in the Horn headlines: Colorado State or Virginia.
Yes.
And these two teams are really different. You watch a lot of basketball. I don't know how much you've seen of Colorado State or Virginia, but just doing the research that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Let me know if you're thinking the same thing in terms of matchups for Texas. The more favorable matchup of those two would be Colorado State for Texas.
I don't necessarily.
I think it's Colorado State.
So okay. I think Virginia, one of the things now they could give them problems. It's going to be a defensive matchup, but Virginia's offense is really not very good at all. Like their defense is really good. Their offense
is really good.
Their offense is not. So there could be issues. I don't know if they have the size inside to compete with Texas size-wise. Either team. So I think that's going to be an advantage. Dylan DeSue, if he has a good game, Texas can beat either one of these opponents because of the inside game. But the reality
Virginia has good defensive.
They really good defense. Yes.
Guard play. Like there's
yes.
What's the young man? He's defensive player of the year for them, Reese Beekman.
Yeah.
6'3" guard. Defensive guards who are really good, who can kind of cancel out Max Haseman. That worries me.
It does, but I think Colorado State can cancel them out too. They have big enough guards as well at Colorado State. They're not as good defensively, but I think a Colorado State team, teams like that tend to do better in March. For a long time, Virginia has been a pretty bad March team because they are based in defense. Defense is not necessarily the best way to win a championship in the NCAA tournament anymore, because you do need to play defense, but you also have to play a lot of offense in the NCAA tournament. They like to promote offense in the NCAA tournament. They want to have high-scoring games. They want to have exciting games. So it could be a tough one for Texas. I think either one of these matchups are close. I don't think either one of them is going to be a walk-away easy win. But they both have guards that are going to give Texas a little bit of trouble, and they both don't really have an inside game that will give Texas a huge amount of problems on either one. So you're going to have to go inside. You're going to have a good game from Dylan DeSue on either matchup.
So Dylan DeSue just got to stay out of foul trouble pretty much.
Yeah, if you get Dylan DeSue to stay out of
inside consistently.
Exactly. Yeah. But
I'm with you on that. The thing that worried me about the Virginia thing is that you're right about because their offense, they want to play like at a sluggish pace too. They want to play slow. That also worries me because sometimes Texas will they'll basically kind of play the style of the opponent, play the brand of basketball of the opponent. If they slow it down to a crawl, my concern would be, man, defensively, if they can neutralize Max Haseman, he has an off game. We don't know what Tyrese Hunter's going to bring. That's always a question too. And then it's kind of the Dylan DeSue show, and that would concern me if the pace is really slow. But I agree with you about Colorado State too. They don't have that much size inside. They do also have guard play that could give Texas some issues.
Yeah, and I just really believe that Texas defense will be good enough against Virginia.
Okay.
And the question it becomes more, I feel like Colorado State could take one of those 15-0 runs against Texas. I don't think Virginia could. And so one of those runs where Texas just really plays poorly and cannot score for 6-7 minutes. I think if you're playing a Virginia and they have that gap where they don't really score, Virginia only scores 4 or 5 points in that run too. So I think you can match a little bit more of that versus a Colorado State team that will be able to go on you a little bit more. So, I mean, either one, there's going to be the ups and downs. I was waiting for Tuesday. I did some early scouting of both of them over the weekend. On Sunday evening,
sure you did, yeah.
to look into it more, but I'm kind of waiting until Tuesday because I don't want to dive too much into either one of these teams. It's not fun to watch Virginia basketball. They don't play a fun style of basketball. So I agree. I don't either matchup is going to pose its own problems. Texas is not a good enough team that you can look at either matchup and say, well, that's an automatic win. But especially Texas going through the gauntlet that is the Big 12 too. Helps you out a little bit more because what you're going to face in Virginia. You face those teams a lot this season. You haven't always won them, but you face those teams a lot. So I think there is something where it's kind of knowing the beast that you're going to play in Virginia. I think you can kind of deal with that a little bit better than going up against a Colorado State team that's a little bit more of an unknown, that you're not sure what you're going to get out of them. And if they come out with the intensity of being Virginia's Virginia, like they know what they're doing, they're there, they make it to the tournament plenty of times, they're in the ACC. A Colorado State team is going to come after you like this is the biggest thing in most of these young kids' careers. And that can Texas match that intensity and energy, which they haven't done a lot this season. We know that Max Asmus wants to make a run. This is one of the reasons he wanted to play at a good school, because he's had success in the tournament before, and he'd like to do it at a bigger school where had a better chance to win. Can he show up in these games and, try and make a push to show and end his career with the high notes? That's going to be the question. I don't think either one of these matchups necessarily suits him really well. And you got to remember, if you win that, you're going to play a Tennessee team with Rick Barnes, who, guess what, wants to play defense. So you're going to have to face some defense no matter what in that first weekend. The question is going to be, can you pull out that win in the first game? But we'll know more on Tuesday. It's a late game on Tuesday. So it'll be the 8 o'clock game on Tuesday when we'll see Virginia versus Colorado State.
No, that's good stuff. And, yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I just think if Tyrese Hunter can catch fire at the right time, and that's a big if.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been inconsistent. But, man, Texas, I think they actually could make some noise in the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
If he could get hot, and because that gives them three guys that would be able to score.
It gives him, but the reality is it gives him Max Asmus, because the more Tyrese Hunter scores, the more you can't help on Max Asmus.
There you go. Exactly.
And so the more Tyrese Hunter becomes a problem, the more he drives the paint, the more he becomes an issue, means you can't just shadow Max Asmus. You can't put two guys over and pushing over on him. And if Dylan Mitchell attacks the basket, because he's going to be taller than a lot of the guys that are going to be playing in this. He'll be taller than the centers and the forwards in these teams. So if he can go in and attack the basket and go up and get, he doesn't want to get to the free throw line as much because he struggled at the free throw line this season. But just go finish, dunk. If you miss the and one, no one's going to care as much. But go to the paint and get to like both these teams don't have the guy inside that you're thinking, okay, here's a 7-footer who's going to be blocking everybody. They have guys that are going to play good paint defense. They're going to be fundamentally good and everything else, but you can get to the paint on these teams. If Tyrese Hunter and Dylan Mitchell do that and don't allow teams to help off of them, don't allow teams to not worry about those two guys, then Max Asmus suddenly becomes a much better player. IT Horton, if he starts to hit some shots, we saw him start to hit some shots in the game, started to take over mid-range, a game that Texas has not utilized really at all. They've been a inside and outside team all season. IT Horton in that last game of the season shot. I think he was 6 for 10 because he went in and just hit mid-range jumpers. And they would come out and stop him on the line, run through him on the line. He'd take 2 steps in and hit a jumper. Those types of things, and just scoring points, making whoever you play in the tournament have to reset out of bounds, making, just not letting it get out of hand. It gives Texas a way bigger shot, but those are a bunch of big ifs.
The third option, basically. Who's going to be the third option?
Yeah.
Who's the third hot hand?
Well, and it's not just who's the third option. It's how many of your players are offensive liabilities that they can then go double Max Asmus and completely take him out of the game. How many guys on this team, as soon as they touch it, are a 95% pass opportunity and just not taking a shot? So why even defend them? That's the problem Texas has been in too many times this season.
Yep. No, that's exactly. No, I agree with you. And I don't know why I'm putting a lot on Tyrese Hunter, but I would say the Longhorns do have a lot of tournament experience. So hopefully that's something that we see give them a lot of advantages and benefits in some of these matchups. I say these matchups, you got to win the first one.
Yep.
So let's focus on the first one, which we will. We'll dive deeper into it. You're right. And we'll continue to discuss Texas as a 7 seed. Congrats to the women, though. They're a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. And that's a hell of an accomplishment considering the trials and tribulations that group has faced so far this season. All right, we'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about the NCAA tournament. Let's get into the NFL, one of the big trades over the weekend. We were wondering, with the NFL's quarterback carousel, where Justin Fields would land and what would be the price tag. And I think we were shocked. I mean, I was flabbergasted. Don't use that a term a lot as a black man, but I was. The Bears got just a 6th round pick from the Pittsburgh Steelers in exchange for Justin Fields, a 6th round pick. I remember Mel Kiper saying at one point he thought they were going to get a 1st round pick for Justin Fields, which I thought was absurd. I thought that was equally absurd as the 6th round pick that they actually got for him. I thought it would be somewhere in between 3rd round pick. Hey, maybe some team gets fleeced in a 2nd round pick, but at least a mid round pick for a former 1st round quarterback in Justin Fields, a top 10 quarterback in Justin Fields, who hasn't, I mean, he's shown some promise. He isn't good. He isn't good yet, but he's shown some promise. The 6th round pick was shocking. Man, I got to give the Steelers. I mean, I'll give the Steelers a round of applause. You're talking about one offseason. They've overhauled the quarterback position and done it for I always talk about value, Patrick. They've done it for less than $6 million total. They got Russell Wilson and now Justin Fields. They're paying Russell Wilson, I don't know, less than $2 million. And the Denver Broncos are paying the rest. And Justin Fields, they're paying him, I think, $3.2 million of his for the last year of his rookie deal. That is amazing to have two potential. And if he plays 51% of the snaps or the games, I believe, then the 6th round pick becomes a 4th round pick. I should say that. So that there is that stipulation. But it's amazing what the Steelers have done in terms of getting value at the quarterback position. I don't know if it's going to work out, but you cannot argue $6 million for Russell Wilson, who's a Super Bowl winning quarterback, a veteran, and then Justin Fields, who is a former, top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And like I said, hasn't necessarily worked out, but getting those two guys at a bargain basement value, that is what talent acquisition is all about.
Well, and then you throw in the fact that they had to give up that 6, but they make it up because they trade Kenny Pickett to move up from the 4th to the 3rd in that trade. They trade a 4th and get back a 3rd, and they get 2 7s. So in reality, you lose a 6, but you get 2 7s. You move up in the draft as well. Overall, you move off of one guy that reports was not thrilled to be the backup anymore, wanted to be the starter, wanted another opportunity. He's gone now. He's in Philadelphia. But again, this is I think we've seen it twice of two organizations who have been really at the bottom of the barrel the last couple of years, and you realize why those organizations are at the bottom of the barrel. We saw with Brian Burns that reports are they turned down 1st round picks for Brian Burns, the Rams. They turned it down, and then they got a pittance of that a few months later. And then we see this where they just misjudged the market, and if they would have done it before free agency, probably could have got a 2nd or a 3rd for him.
Yep.
But they waited till free agency was done. Everyone had a quarterback. And then they come out and go, well, who wants him? And everybody goes, well, he's a backup now. Because he's not, we all feel like we have somebody that we'd rather have. We already signed somebody. So now we're not giving up a 2nd or a 3rd for a backup quarterback that may never even play for us because because we know his contract's coming up and we're not going to pay him a bunch of money to be our backup, but we'll have him come in. The Steelers understood the market. They played it well because now they have 2 options. I like the trade for the Steelers, but the Bears, once again, just trying to hold on to something that they think would make gain in value. And all it did was lose value. And then if you're going to keep him through that, then keep him through the draft.
Just keep
what are you going to get less value than a 6 after the draft? If one of these teams doesn't get Michael Penix or Bo Nix or one of the guys they really want, and they do want a backup quarterback now because they didn't get somebody they feel could play, maybe you get a value for him then because they say, well, I'll give up a 4th or a 5th in the draft because all those quarterbacks just got drafted and I didn't get mine and I need a backup. You could have gotten a little bit more value then, but you do it in the middle where there's hope for a player in the draft, but the free agency's done. What were you thinking at that window? Why is it that window?
Because the Bears will screw up the quarterback position no matter what it is, whether it's giving a quarterback up or getting a quarterback, developing a quarterback. That's a great point. Why not just wait? I'm with you. It made no sense at all. Either you were going to do it before free agency, but why do it in between free agency and the draft? That's a great point. But the Steelers, and that's the second time. Remember, what was that Chase Claypool trade? Remember that trade to the Bears? Where they got like a 2nd round pick for Chase Claypool. And turns out Chase Claypool I don't even know what Chase Claypool was doing. Is he still on the roster?
Yeah.
Somewhere I got to go check that out. But that was a trade too. Also, the Steelers kind of fleeced the Bears. And here's another one. So it's a great job by the Steelers. And I do wonder, because Arthur Smith is now the offensive coordinator there. We'll get into this a little bit later on in some X's and O's. But I wonder if Russell Wilson and if they can't work it out with Russell Wilson, let's say he's not going to work out, let's say Justin Fields does end up playing half the snaps, which one of those quarterbacks is more likely to have the quarterback resurrection there?
Yeah.
Is it Russell Wilson or is it? And I don't even know if you can call Justin Fields a resurrection because I don't know if he's ever actually proving himself in the NFL. But he was drafted with the upside that he was going to be a franchise quarterback.
Can
Which
he,
one of those guys is most likely in an Arthur Smith system with the Pittsburgh Steelers, great organization, great culture, to have the turnaround?
No, that's going to be the question. And I mean, it's just another one of those weird pieces. Like when you look at this trade, could you tell me that Atlanta, if you called him up and said, give me a fourth for Justin Fields and you don't have to pay Kirk Cousins $180 million, would you, Atlanta, not want to take him for a 4th round pick and say, screw Kirk Cousins, we don't need to pay him $180 million? We can go ahead and, we'll rebuild with this. And now we can spend that money on our defense and try and build up our defense a little bit more. And I'm assuming that the offensive coordinator, what's it, Zach Robinson? Is that who it is?
Yes.
That he basically said, I want to have Kirk Cousins. Yeah, that's my guy. And I'm assuming that's the case. But if I'm looking at that and I say one is a really overpriced Kirk Cousins and one is a complete value Justin Fields, I might take Justin Fields for a year and say, well, look, we'll try him out and see if he can do anything. And if we can salvage him, and if I salvage him, if I'm Zach Robinson, I get a starting job somewhere.
Yeah.
Because if I win with Kirk Cousins, it doesn't mean anything for me as a coach, really. They'll go, look, you have Bijan and Kyle Pitt. You had all these weapons. You spent $180 million on a quarterback. You didn't turn anything around. But if I turn Justin Fields around and I win with that team, then I'm front of line for head coaches next year.
Hey, that's why, listen, I was opposed to the Kirk Cousins thing. I was like, that doesn't make sense. From a value perspective, paying him $100 million made no sense at all. You can win from what Kirk Cousins is going to give you, which is basically winning the division, getting to the postseason. You could have done that with a lower priced quarterback. You could have found better value.
A 6th round pick for Justin Fields?
That was my opposition to it. I was like, nah, y'all didn't do y'all research. Y'all could have found a better option. But I know Kirk Cousins he's guaranteed to get you to the playoffs and to win that division. You could have done it at a cheaper price.
But my point, at a cheaper price. What would the Bears ask for in that trade? Because they didn't ask for a 6, or they would have done it.
I don't know how many teams inquired honestly about Justin.
But we know Atlanta. We know Atlanta was interested. That was all reported, and so that they had to go to them and ask for at minimum a 2nd. Where Atlanta said, "Let's wait in free agency. We won't give up a 2nd for him, if not a 1st." That they asked for Atlanta, and then they get a 6, and you go, we probably could have got a 2nd or a 3rd from Atlanta for Justin Fields, but we screwed it up because we waited till Kirk Cousins got there, and then they don't have any interest.
There's some coaches who really Justin Fields can't play, though.
I agree.
There are some coaches in the NFL who genuinely believe. I'll give you a stat. There's some coaches that believe he can't play. Since 1980, that was the year I was born. I'm an old man. If you look at that NFL quarterbacks in career sack rate with a minimum of 900 attempts, Justin Fields is dead last. He is dead last among every quarterback that's ever started in the NFL and thrown passes in sack rate. He is dead last, man. 43 years of football, and his sack rate is that bad. They've done analytics now to show that about 40% of sacks are just the quarterback results. It's sacks, quarterback self sacks essentially. He is probably the biggest self-sacker in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's amazing because he's also one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the history of the NFL too. And yet he's also a guy that can't avoid pressure in the pocket. It's strange. He ends up being, like I said, self-sacked. He looks at the pressure and then he can't even avoid it, even with his elite ability as a runner. That is, I think, for a lot of scouts out there, a lot of NFL coaches, that is something that they cannot reconcile. Like they don't understand. It's like, how is that possible? And also, you go look at his interception rate the last 3 years. He's got the highest sack rate in the NFL, but also the highest interception rate. So there are some coaches who believe he just can't play.
Yeah,
it's not even worth it. And then that's where you get, no, I'll give you a 6th round pick. He can't play.
Yeah,
he can't. Now I think he can play a little bit, but it's got to be the right system. And then that's when you get into Ken Arthur Smith. Build that system around his specific skill set.
Yeah, and it's Kenny Ryan Tannehill. That's the Arthur Smith example because that was a guy. That was a guy he got that in Miami was getting sacked and throwing interceptions, and then all I need you to do is hand the ball off and get it going. So if he can get that, but that's what I'm saying. I just don't. I'm much more of the opportunity, and this is a Mike Tomlin thing. It's like to say you can't coach somebody that they need to listen to you better means that you don't coach well. That's on you, not them. Mike Tomlin had that whole rant on I can't remember.
Don't run from coaching.
Don't run from
His
coaching.
whole
Rant.
rant about don't run from coaching.
And I
Coaching
think
means
and that's why he's a guy who will go, I'll take Russell Wilson, I'll take Justin Fields, because I'm not going to run from it. Whereas other teams, and again, I'm just saying Atlanta just because that's the team that made the most sense before Kirk Cousins. And when you realize the price of those two guys, I get that Kirk Cousins is a better player, but I also understand what you could do. And I think you have to build that win through defense even with Kirk Cousins. So I think you could have built that defense and tried to have an elite defense in there. And,
no, but to that point about run from coaching, though, a lot of coaches are not willing to change and adapt their systems. It's like, no, my system is there's a certain type of quarterback for my system, and I'm not changing my system. Which honestly, and I get that train of thought, but I think a really true quarterback nurturer, quarterback guru, whatever they want to call themselves, if you want to be considered a made man, you can coach all types of skill sets at the quarterback position. I think a lot of coaches, they are a little bit afraid of that. They do have anxiety about coaching very, I would say, progressive and very modern quarterback skill sets, which do honestly kind of lend themselves to quarterbacks who can move around, quarterbacks who have a functional mobility, dual threat ability, and a lot of coaches still to this day don't want to get into that. Matter of fact, we'll get into that in Raj round today. There you go. Since we're going there, we'll get into Raj round today because think about it. If you're Atlanta, you just spent $100 million on Kirk Cousins after and you didn't want to go after Lamar Jackson. You know, I mean, it's strange to me. And then Justin Fields, also a quarterback that is a true dual threat. He goes for a 6th round pick. I still think the NFL has really I don't know, they discriminate against quarterbacks that have dual threat ability. They don't, and it goes a lot of them too. I mean, it's a different QBs too. I mean, Josh Allen's in that mode. Hell, Daniel Jones, I think, probably recently fell into that mode too. They still believe that the pocket passing quarterback, and they may be right about this. I'm not saying they're wrong. But the overwhelming belief is that the path to a Super Bowl is with a pocket passing quarterback. Even if they can run, they need to be like a Steve Young, and they need to be able to evolve their skill set and to be able to cultivate it where they can become a pocket passer at one point. All right, so we'll get into that in Raj Man today. I know we're over. Let's go to the behind the burn on curtain. We'll do that next segment. We'll also have the big fat poll today coming up at 6:45. We'll come back and we'll talk about Longhorns, who are ranked in the latest top 50 prospects by ESPN. Talking about the NFL draft, and also we'll talk NFL. We'll talk Texas spring football, of course, because we're one day away from that. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast. That my man Patrick Davis co-hosting with myself, lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back here on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Austin, Texas is a great city. Even with the traffic, it's still one of the best cities in the country. And as the city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. Many of the iconic landmarks around this great city were built by the hands and the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like DKR Stadium and the Pennybacker Bridge. And right now, they have another big project happening right here in Central Texas. They're hiring over 3,000 people, and one of those people can be you. Right now, they're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So if you're thinking about different employment opportunities, or a refreshing career change, or maybe you're thinking about a new challenge, maybe you want to change professions, or maybe you want to feel valued by your employer, or maybe you want to contribute more to your community as a part of your profession, how about thinking about becoming a member of Ironworkers Local 482? Right now is a great time to do it. They're offering numerous opportunities, numerous different positions, and like I said, competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. If you're thinking to yourself, I don't have the skill set to become a member of Ironworkers Local 482, don't worry, they will pay you while they teach you the skill set. They got a lot of great opportunities. You can go online and check them out today over at ironworkers482.org. Inquiries and job applications online at ironworkers482.org. Go check it out for yourself, and you can maximize your potential and accept the challenge of becoming the best version of yourself simply by joining Ironworkers 482. Let's go to ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, Texas one day away from starting spring football, and we'll get to some spring football discussion, of course, all throughout the week. We'll even get to it later on, even in the next behind the burners curtain, even this behind the burners curtain if we have some time. But I saw that Jordan Reed, I believe, of ESPN posted ESPN's top 50 NFL draft prospects, and 4 Longhorns made their top 50 list. Which is more than I believe last time. I think last time they did the pre-combine one. This is the post-combine one. I believe there are only 3 Longhorns in their top 50. They had Byron Murphy at 17 overall in their top 50 rankings, and that's no surprise. He's always been somewhere in the teens of the big board rankings, but also in all the mock drafts. He's somewhere there in the teens. It's interesting to see the free agency is going to affect a lot of these guys and their projected landing spots and destinations in the draft, because the teams that really loaded up on certain positions, they may not prioritize it in the draft. The Texans are a good example of that. We'll get into this a little bit later on, but the Texans traded out of their first round pick for this season. A lot of people speculate that's because they do want a wide receiver in the draft, but they believe by the 23rd overall pick that the wide receivers that they want may already be off the board, and then maybe there's better value if they get a wide receiver later in the draft. There was also a report that they went after Keenan Allen. To try to trade for Keenan Allen, that would make sense if that aligns at least with the theory that they want a wide receiver really badly, but they don't think there's going to be, at least in this draft, the wide receiver that they want is not going to be there at 23. And they may have better value. So because of that, obviously the changing situation and circumstances of every team, depending on free agency, they could decide, hey man, we're going to emphasize this position or emphasize the other position. So Byron Murphy, I still think he'll go somewhere in the teens. He's ranked 17th here in the ESPN Big Board rankings, top 50 overall prospects. They got AD Mitchell still ranked ahead of Xavier Worthy. He's at 20 overall, that's as high as I've seen AD Mitchell actually in any big board prospect rankings. Basically, they got him as a top 20 player overall among the wide receivers. I mean, I think he's firmly in the first round. I said that after watching him at the combine. I say even before, if he runs faster than a 4.5, then he's going to be a first round pick. Well, he ran a 4.3 so I think he cemented himself as a first round pick, and they got him number 20 overall here. And that is the draft pick in terms of number 20 overall on their big board in their top 50 prospects. They got Xavier Worthy, number 38. Which I want to say I've seen Xavier Worthy maybe a little bit higher on the big board. They got him at 38 here. I think that's because maybe you got some teams loading up at wide receiver. Remember, the Kansas City Chiefs were seen as the go-to pick for Xavier Worthy for a lot of mocks. Lance Zierlein, Mel Kiper prior to the combine, but post-combine, it was Dane Brugler, Lance Zierlein was among that group. I mean, there are a lot of well-respected draft analysts that had Xavier Worthy going to the Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs get Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, and a lot of people think, well, maybe that's the speedy, small-ish receiver that Patrick Mahomes needs, not Xavier Worthy. So maybe Xavier Worthy is dropping down a lot of people's lists, but he's 38th on this big board rankings, and they got T'Vondre Sweat at 48 overall. So they would have basically four Longhorns in the top 2 rounds, and you may even get JT Sanders sneaking in there as well in the top 2 rounds. So right now I'm thinking 5 Longhorns in the top 2 rounds, Patrick, is what it's looking like. The Jonathan Brooks conversation about him being a second round pick, that's still out there if he's the top running back on the board. I don't know. I think running backs getting pushed out, not only of the first round, there's a chance running back gets pushed out potentially late in the second round and maybe even out of the second round too. There's a chance of it. The position overall.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on if all it's going to take is one team. Because I think if one team takes either Brooks or Benson or just one running back, there's just not a lot of depth at the running back in the draft. So if one team says we're going to go ahead and make sure we get our guy, then all of a sudden you could see the dominoes fall and more guys start to, fall off the board and go quickly. So Jonathan Brooks could go. I don't think he'd be the first running back to go either. If it goes early, I think he'd be the first running back to go if it goes later. So if it goes into the third round, he could be the first running back.
I gotcha.
But I think if someone says we want a running back, we're really big on Trey Benson or we're really big on somebody else, and we really want them, and we want somebody who can play week 1 at running back, then they could go, and then Jonathan Brooks all of a sudden becomes somebody where, okay, well, he's on our board pretty high if he wasn't injured, and we like him. And so we're going to go ahead and take him here because we need a running back in this draft, and we only have 3 on our board that we want, or we only have 4 on our board that we even want. That could lead to him going in the second round. But I could easily see everybody just being on the same page and saying, let's go get these other positions first, and then wait till the third round when running backs start to go.
The lowest. It will be history if a running back is pushed out of the second round. The lowest the first running back selected was in any draft was Bishop Sankey in 2014. He was drafted 54th overall. So it would be, like I said, historic if it happens. But right now, there's just talk that the running back position, because of the free agent market of the running
Yep.
back position in the NFL right now and how robust it's been, that it's just pushing the value of the running back position down. But I think there will be a running back drafted in the second round. But the question is, will it be Jonathan Brooks,
Yeah.
as you brought up? It might not be him. How about this? Just one other time, though. In 1963 was the first running back selected overall, lower than 37th overall. So it doesn't happen very often that a running back drops deep into the second round. The first running back overall drafted drops deep into the second round. This is one of those years where it could possibly happen. All right, we'll get into some spring football conversation in the next Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain. But I'll ask my man Patrick this, because I think it's a question that we'll dive into a little bit more when we go Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain next segment. What's the strength of this roster, in your opinion? What's the strength of the Texas football roster right now? The biggest strength, like the biggest strength on the team, the strongest unit, I should say, or aspect of it.
I'd probably go wide receivers.
Wide receiver's a good one.
I'd
I
probably
think they got a lot. The point is, I think it could be like more than one thing.
yeah, I agree.
I'm with you. I think it is something to ponder, because I think
Yeah, I
it
like
could
the
be O
question.
line. If you want to go
Yeah.
O line, it could be O line.
It could be
If you want
O-line.
to go wide receiver, it could certainly be wide receiver.
Yeah.
With how deep, how we see the transfer portal
When
and what they
we're
brought in
hearing the
acquisition.
reports about Jonte Cook and Ryan Wingo,
It
when
could
we
be
hear
that
about
group.
those two guys playing at a very high level in spring, then they go, okay, well, if those guys step up and then they're pushing hard, and
Yeah. Some people say if the O line is the strength, but the running backs are also good, it could just be the running game overall. If Quinn's supposed to be the first quarterback taken in the draft, if he's that good, right now they got him, I think, as the kind of the second or third best quarterback in the country behind Carson Beck and Shadur Sanders. But if he's in the conversation to be, in a Heisman finalist, and I think he is in that conversation right now, it could be Quinn. It could be quarterback. Hell, they got Arch Manning behind Quinn. It could be quarterback.
Yeah, I mean,
it could be.
I'll say if Quinn Ewers takes the leap that he took last year or the 2 years ago to last year again, then yeah,
exactly.
If he takes that loop again, where you say, man, all these problems, he fixed a lot of them. There's now new problems. There's still some of the old ones, but he took a huge leap over the last offseason. He could do that again. Then you say, okay, well now it's the quarterback room and then the passing game. When you add that in with the wide receivers, and you say that passing game is going to be there.
And it seems like most of these on offense, though. We're not going with
well
that on
because
defense
the D line,
anywhere.
you lose that interior D line. So
the edges are the only place you could maybe argue that.
Yeah.
The secondary should be a strength, but anyway, the point is we'll get into that later on. But I think that's a conversation that we'll dive into when we go behind the Burnt Orange Curtain. So, speaking of conversations, we always have a good one after the big fat poll of the day is released. My man Patrick will do that coming up next segment. We'll have your big fat poll of the day. Always a fun conversation. All of that and more when the Rodcast return, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, coming right back on the Horn.
Back on the Rodcast on a Monday morning, Smooth Soul Monday, playing you some Smooth Soul Monday to ease into the week. If anybody was out having South by Southwest fun or St. Patrick's Day fun or any type of fun this weekend that maybe overindulged a little bit and having a Monday morning where you didn't want to get out of bed, hopefully a little Smooth Soul Monday eases you in to that Monday morning here on the Horn. It is time, though, for the Big Fat Poll of the Day. Text line is open, 512-447-3776. 512-447-3776 is the text line number.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today, because we know Justin Fields just headed to Pittsburgh. We know that Russell Wilson is supposed to be the starter. Justin Fields was traded to be a backup. But it does lead you to believe that there's going to be somewhat of a short leash there for Russell Wilson. They do have their contingency plan in place. Philadelphia gets their contingency plan in place as well with Kenny Pickett. If Jalen Hurts continues to struggle, maybe they have somebody else. Maybe they're looking for some help if injuries take out Jalen Hurts, they can have somebody behind him. We know that was the case. Trevor Lawrence with Mac Jones in Jacksonville, they couldn't pick him out. But I want to ask you today, because of that, who will be the first quarterback benched in the NFL next season? So who will be the quarterback that gets the first, you are no longer the starting quarterback. So not injury, not first quarterback to be thinking, but first quarterback benched. And you could say it's Russell Wilson, that he'll be the first one, that the rebuilding of Russell Wilson will not happen, that will be a short-lived experiment, and they will say, okay, we signed you to a one-year deal. We're moving on from that. Let's see what we have in Justin Fields, and they'll move on from that. Could it be Daniel Jones, who is still probably the starter, getting paid $45 million a year? They don't have another sure thing starter on that roster. So is Daniel Jones, they try and trot him back out and see if he's able to do anything over the offseason to get better. Is that a guy? Will Levis in Tennessee, they're sticking with him this year, but does he sophomore slump it? Does he have problems? They have to make a move in Tennessee. You know, it's a very small sample size of what he did. He had some good games. He had some not so good games, but do they stick with him in a division where Indy looks like Anthony Richardson looked pretty good in that series? You know that the Texans are improving. You know that Jacksonville's there. Does Tennessee get left behind in this? Where do you go? Is it one of the teams that draft somebody and, you figure the Pats, Commanders, Raiders, Bears are all going to be starting rookie quarterbacks? You assume, maybe the Raiders start Gardner Minshew, but is it one of those guys? Is it Minshew then?
For a while.
Is Minshew the guy who gets benched first? Is it one of the rookies, Caleb Young or Caleb Williams or Drake May?
No, they're not going to get benched. Once they start, they're starting.
But we've seen some of them, and they're really, really bad. Like Bryce Young got benched several times last year because he was just so bad that they go, well, we can't put a guy out there who's getting sacked every 5 minutes and then also throwing picks every 5. We can't have him out there because the rest of the team's going to mutiny on us at a certain point. So we need to let him grow a little bit. Could it be one of those guys who will be? Yeah. So let us know on the text line, 512-447-3776. Who will be the first quarterback benched in the NFL next season?
That is a good question. I'm not sure about that one. Got to do some research on who the backups are and who's going to draft what quarterback and what their method of development is going to be. Because if they're going to sit their rookie for a while and then let the bridge quarterback play or the veteran play, then this is an easy answer for one of those teams if they have that strategy. If not, and then there's how many bridge quarterbacks are there right now in the NFL? That's the question. Because a bridge quarterback, a team's not invested in them, then they'll bench them quickly. That's the question. Because if you're a franchise quarterback, the chances of you being benched are very low. A team will just kind of ride it out with you while they come up with another plan. But if you're a bridge quarterback who hasn't, and I know Geno Smith got paid, Baker was considered a bridge quarterback at one point. He just got paid. Hell, Jared Goff was considered a bridge quarterback.
That's for the Detroit Lions. I didn't list Baker on the fact that they don't have another. Now, if they draft somebody,
so they just paid him too. So,
but even if they draft somebody and he struggles in his second year, he could still get benched. He didn't get paid that much that there's no way they would possibly bench him. But at the same point, that they don't have anyone behind him right now that's even worth benching him for.
No.
So that conversation only comes up if they end up with a Bo Nix or a Michael Penix or somebody in that range where you feel that guy could be ready to play sooner rather than later?
Yeah, you won't really know a lot of that about this question until post draft.
Yeah.
Then you'll kind of find out the situations that teams are in.
But I
and
think
what they
that
want to do.
I think, there's three easy ones. Will Levis is one that you kind of want to look at because he's somebody that we know there are issues with him, and he looked okay enough last year that it doesn't seem like it. Daniel Jones, there's just not like Tyrod Taylor's on that roster. Tommy DeVito was playing last year. There's not a lot of help behind him, but it's also Daniel Jones, and the reports are that they hate him there and they're ready to move on. That was a terrible contract. And then, of course, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is also probably an easy answer because if you decide he's not the guy, well, then you want to give Justin Fields a try to see if he's the guy, or do you have to find somebody else next year?
Yeah. No, really the biggest mistake about quarterbacks is not, missing on the quarterback. Everybody misses on quarterbacks. Even the best quarterback evaluators will miss on the quarterback. It's paying a quarterback you miss on with the second contract. If you know you made the mistake, realize you made the mistake, trade the guy and be done with it, move on. But when you pay a guy that you knew was actually a mistake and you were uncertain about the second contract, that's when ultimately it affects the franchise in a negative way. All right, so good question there because it opens up a good conversation as the big fat poll of the day off the dust. Thank you, Patrick. We'll come back. We'll get into some NFL discussion. Cowboys now with another void to fill. Tyron Smith is officially a JETS Jet. We'll also get into the Texans, who we're going to make a trade. Now Nick Casario has earned a new nickname among Texans fans. We'll talk about that and have Rod's rant of the day. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming right back on the Horn. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. I'm actually just jamming a little bit too much. I got in the
I
zone there on a
know.
Smooth Soul Monday, man. That's my man Patrick doing a great job there on a Smooth Soul Monday, getting the vibe right. It don't, Mondays are tough for a lot of people. You might have a case of the Mondays. Smooth Soul Monday is meant to relieve your anxiety about Monday. All right, to relieve you of any case you may have of the Monday. So thanks, my man Patrick, for another musically themed day of the week. You can always hit us up on the text line 512-447-3776. That's where we're discussing a lot of different topics from the weekend. Longhorn men's getting the 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. They're going to play the winner of Colorado State and Virginia in the first 4 matchup. The ladies, congratulations to the Texas women's basketball team. They get the 1 seed. Very impressive. They'll play Drexel in the first round. Not a lot to talk about that. They're expected to just smash them. But the Longhorns, really interesting getting the 7 seed. We talked about that. We'll get back into that conversation. Also, Rod's rant of the day is coming up here in later on in this segment. We'll talk about the quarterback carousel in the NFL, and really the latest reality that NFL fans have to realize about the quarterback position overall. So we'll get into that. Longhorn fans really excited because they're 1 day away from spring football. So we'll talk about that. We did when we went behind the burn orange curtain. We'll continue that conversation as well. The big fat poll of the day, also discussing the quarterback carousel in the NFL. My man Patrick, give the folks the big fat poll of the day. For the folks out there who want to get into it on the text line 512-447-3776.
Big fat poll today. Who will be the first quarterback benched in the NFL next season? Since we saw Justin Fields end up in Pittsburgh backing up Russell Wilson, will Russell Wilson be the first quarterback benched? At Daniel Jones in New York? Will Levis in Tennessee? Maybe somewhere else. Maybe somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they'll be the first quarterback bench next season.
You know what? The Steelers thing is interesting because they're almost situating themselves just in case Russell Wilson implodes or is not the right fit. They can just go right into the Justin Fields thing, and whatever plays they have, or at least the offense they're going to build, I'm sure will have similarities in it for both Russell Wilson and for Justin Fields, because they do have skill sets that are, comparable. They have skill sets that are similar. Now, they're not the same quarterback, but there is a belief that Russell Wilson operates better off schedule, and that when he was in a Sean Payton offense, they wanted him to be on schedule, rhythm passing within the offense, timing, and that's not what Russell Wilson does really well. He can do it, but that's not where he's at his best. And he's at his best in an offense that allows him, that almost game plans for and almost bakes in the improvisation for him, gives him freedom to improvise a little bit. And Arthur Smith, I believe that maybe he's going to do that, or maybe his offense has that at least that flexibility. So we'll get into that. That's an interesting conversation. Honestly, I'm leaning right now that it's the Steelers. I'm leaning right now this Russell Wilson.
Yeah, they're the front runner, and you're right.
Yeah.
I went after the draft. That may change.
That could change after the draft.
And there could be a team that drafts somebody that you weren't expecting them to draft, and all of a sudden that quarterback is on watch now. That could happen as well. But as of right now, I think the 2 top ones would be Daniel Jones and Russell Wilson. Even though Daniel Jones, there's not necessarily someone there. There is rumors that they could take a J.J. McCarthy. There is rumors they could take a quarterback with, I believe, the 8th pick. So they could have one there, and then, you're going to try and not put them in right away. But how long do you wait, especially if you're a coach who is not sure how long you're going to keep your job there?
Yeah. We'll talk about the Texans because of the move that they made moving out of the first round. A lot of people believe the Minnesota Vikings, because now they're stockpiling draft capital, are in a position to move up in the draft to go get themselves a quarterback as well. To your point about J.J. McCarthy, getting back to Sean Payton, who was just coaching Russell Wilson, there's discussion that he really likes J.J. McCarthy, big J.J. McCarthy fan, and would like, kind of him to be a developmental project quarterback for Sean Payton. So there's a lot of discussion about QBs. We'll continue that in Rod's Rant today. We'll talk about the Texans, because the Texans, Nick Caserio's getting a nickname that we got to discuss. And I think it's pretty cool. Well, the Cowboys and Stephen Jones already has a nickname, not a flattering one like Nick Caserio has. But Tyron Smith leaving the Cowboys. And that's not the big news. The big news is the deal that he he signed for with the New York Jets. I think that's what Cowboys fans want to get into. So we'll do that. We'll have the Horn headlines here momentarily to get you updated and informed on all the big headlines of the day from my man Patrick Davis. You want to follow him via Twitter? It's worth the follow at It's Patrick Davis in the Twitterverse. I'm at Rod Babers in the Twitterverse. All right, let's not waste any time. Let's get to the Horn headlines, and then we'll come back discuss some of the NFL moves from the weekend with the Cowboys and the Texans. Patrick, let's do it.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Both the men's and women's NCAA tournament brackets were set yesterday. The men's number 1 seeds are UConn, Houston, Purdue, and North Carolina. Texas received a 7th seed in the Midwest and will await the winner of Tuesday's Colorado State and Virginia game to find out their opponent for Thursday's first-round game in Charlotte. The Longhorn women earned their first number 1 seed since 2004, along with other number 1 seeds, South Carolina, Iowa, and USC. Texas will start the tournament against Drexel on Friday afternoon. Texas softball finished off BYU in a doubleheader on Friday with a 7-3 win, followed by another run rule win 10-0 in 5 innings to close out the series. They will be back in action on Wednesday for another top 20 matchup in Tallahassee against Florida State. And Texas baseball lost their series to Washington over the weekend, 2-1, with a 4-3 series salvaging win on Sunday and a game shortened to 8 innings due to rain. LeBaron Johnson Jr. posted his best start of the season, pitching 6 innings with only 1 earned run and 10 strikeouts. However, a poor performance from the bullpen would cost Texas. On Saturday, Ace Whitehead pitched 7 innings in relief, only allowing 1 hit, but Texas could not rally. Texas will take on Air Force in a mini-series starting Tuesday in Austin. In the NBA, the Spurs split their 2 games played at the Moody Center this weekend, losing to the Nuggets on Friday, then getting a overtime win against the Nets, 122-115, where Wembanyama put up 33 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 blocks. The Houston Rockets won their matchup against a struggling Cavs team on Saturday, keeping them just 3.5 games out of the play-in tournament. And the Mavericks knocked off the Nuggets with a Kyrie Irving buzzer beater, 107-105. The Mavs and Spurs will meet up on Tuesday. And in the PGA, Scottie Scheffler won the Players' Championship, coming from 5 strokes back at the start of the final round. Scottie Scheffler posted a 20-under for the tournament to become the first ever back-to-back winner in the 50 years of the event. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Yeah, Scottie Scheffler and whatever he's done to try to rework the putting seems to be working. His putting is getting a little bit better. That was the only thing holding him back from being, I don't know, from going on a at least a Tiger Woods-esque type run. If you look at all the analytics and the stats of his game, if his putting has gone from, which was basically bottom of the barrel, if it's going from being one of the worst putters on the PGA Tour to at least being average, that it could end up being bad news for the rest of the PGA Tour, because that was kind of one thing holding them back. It kind of reminded me of Texas last year. It was like Texas offense was elite, but the only place they were bad is in the red zone. And they weren't just bad in the red zone. They were 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in the red zone. You were, man, if Texas was at least, they were like 65th or 70th in touchdown percentage in the red zone, they're probably undefeated, and they're probably playing in a national title.
Yeah,
against Michigan, but they weren't. They were 120th in the country in touchdown percentage in the red zone, and it dragged them down a little bit, even though they were a really good team. That's why they lost Oklahoma game. That's why they lost the game versus Washington in the Sugar Bowl and came back to haunt them. And that had been coming back to haunt Scottie Scheffler a lot. The fact that in money time, his putting, it was not just mediocre, it was atrocious. And I'm not saying he's fixed it, but it looks like it's improved. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So congrats to Scottie Scheffler. That's pretty big time. All right, let's get to some Cowboys news, notes, and nuggets. We'll talk Texans. Then we'll get to Rod's rant of the day. All right, let's talk about the Cowboys, because Cowboys fans, they're watching a lot of their free agents leave, and the Cowboys are not trying to re-sign a lot of these guys. And that's understandable, because Cowboys don't have a lot of salary cap flexibility. But the Tyron Smith signing by the Jets was very telling, because he signed with, and I was surprised about this too. He signed with the Jets for a 1-year deal with incentives that could be worth up to $20 million. And then when they broke down the incentives and the way that it was set up, this is from Pro Football Talk. Initial indications of the Tyron Smith deal: $6.5 million guaranteed, with another $13.5 million based on playing time and incentives. So a pretty team friendly contract, a pretty safe contract that, hey, if the old man can't give you enough, snaps and can't play enough, then you don't have to pay him for it. And I was a little surprised by that. I thought that's what the Cowboys were kind of offering. I think that was at least the initial report of the dispute between he and the Cowboys, where the Cowboys were offering an incentive laden deal, and he wanted more guarantees, which makes sense as an older player. At least give me the guaranteed money up front, and then make it a 1-year deal, but give me the money. Here he still signed an incentive laden deal with the Jets, which I got to think the Cowboys at least could have been competitive in that deal. I got to think that maybe because the Cowboys were the team that he's been with, maybe he expected the Cowboys to make better offers than the one he was getting on the free market. That's the only thing I can think of, because that's a deal, don't you think, that the Cowboys could and should match?
It is,
it was just 6.5 guaranteed.
But I think we've seen the Cowboys this offseason have really set that they're moving on in some of these positions, and they are not going to be negotiating deals with people who seem to want more. For whatever reason, they are saying, we'll move on. If Tyler Biadasz doesn't want to be here, fine. If Tyron Smith doesn't want to be here, fine. Whoever doesn't want to be here, fine. It feels like they're taking a hardline stance, and I don't know how much of it is the Cowboys taking a hardline stance that they're not going to get backed into a corner where they know next season their salary cap number is going to be worse than it is this year, with a lot of restructured deals, because again, the Cowboys were planning on that window being open about 3 or 4 years ago. It didn't happen, and they're kind of trying to figure out a way to get back on their feet right now, which they're still winning, but just financially getting back on their feet where they have money, where they feel they're, feel better that they don't have their dead cap numbers so big of restructured cap and all of this other stuff. So I think they're trying to do that on one end, but I'm also curious how much it is that the culture of the Cowboys right now, between the staff and coaches and front office, is one where there's really two sides of, hey, we're all friends and we'll treat your family great. And man, Mike McCarthy is one of the nicest guys who genuinely cares about you. And then they come back and they say, we want you to take half of what you earned. They say, well, you don't care about me one bit if you're not going to pay me. If you can't put your money where your mouth is, and the players and agents,
that's every NFL team. And honestly, you know this. That's every company you work for.
But
hey, we're a family here, and then you're fired.
but that's the thing is, I don't think most teams. We look at those player polls and stuff. A lot of the other teams don't have that relationship with coaches. They don't have that relationship with their front managers. The Cowboys built a culture of we are family, very much. Everything they do. Jerry Jones, they call him coach. That's what he wants to have, that relationship with him. Mike McCarthy, that is one of the things you'll hear about Mike McCarthy a lot, is that he really cares, and he'll have conversations about their families and talking all of that. And it just feels at some point the culture, the mood shifted around, and whether it's because Micah and CD have not gotten paid, because Dak is not getting paid right now, that there is a belief that this Cowboys organization is not willing to pay anybody, that maybe the words don't mean as much anymore and they want to see action. Or it could just be the other way, and the Cowboys could be saying, you guys didn't win us a title, we're going to try different guys because you guys couldn't get it done.
And they're going to re-sign their main guys. I'm just concerned at certain positions, key positions, the Cowboys are being a little bit negligent in terms of I think at center, I think at left tackle with Tyron Smith, whatever you're going to play him, I think that's a little maybe a miscalculation to let some of the running back position. We talked about how that hurt them last season, and they miscalculated that market. Hope is not a strategy. And I think oftentimes the Cowboys kind of go into these situations hoping an opportunity will arise where they can bring in talent. I think right now, David Bakhtiari, the former Packers tackle, I know he hadn't played a lot because he's dealt with some injuries too. I think he's a cheap option for you. I think you definitely need to go out and try to find a cheap option in addition to drafting offensive linemen too. You're going to need a center. You're going to need a running back. I really don't understand what the Cowboys are doing this offseason. I don't get it. Listen, I understand the hardline stance where they're saying essentially we're all in, and all in is everybody's on a contract year. Mike Zimmer's on the contract year, 1 year. Hell, Dak may have to play out this season on his last year of his contract. Lame duck coach for Mike McCarthy. He's on a 1 year deal. Last year of his deal. Fifth year option for Micah. I understand all these things. So maybe the sense of urgency is what they're trying to infuse with this culture of complacency. But some of this stuff just doesn't make sense.
No, none of it makes sense. And that's what I'm trying to justify in my mind why the Cowboys, who have historically re-signed their own players, historically have done things where they would
like our guys.
Yeah, and so they don't play in free agency. They don't make a ton of trades, but they re-sign their players. That's something they've done. Well, now they're saying we're not going to play in free agency. You don't know if we're going to trade or not, and we're not going to keep our guys. And you have to go, how are you going to build a team? Because you cannot build with just drafted players.
I don't understand what you said. That seemed like a one. If you wanted a 1 year deal, $6.5 million of a salary, and the rest of the $20 million in incentives, yeah. I would have taken that all day, every day, and twice on Sunday if I were the Cowboys.
Especially after losing Biadasz.
Especially after using Biadasz, and now you're wondering what are your options. Like I said, you can go out there and get Bakhtiari. He's one of those guys. You can move Tyler Smith to left tackle if you want to. That's an option. You can play left tackle. I just think the Cowboys are being very I think they're gambling a lot, and they're gambling with hope as a strategy that this will all work out. But you got crucial holes right now on that roster, like big time center, going into the draft, center, tackle, running back. So the Cowboys got to face still, linebacker. I know they got Eric Kendricks. They still need more linebacker help.
They do, and they will have Overshawn back this year too, wherever they can use him. So they are getting another. So they'll have players at linebacker, but again, there's zero depth in the linebacker core because you lost some guys. So
LVE officially retired.
So you're getting one injury away from being depleted at linebacker, which is not really where you want to be.
And I think they need a wide receiver now because they let Michael Gallup.
Yeah.
They released Michael Gallup, so I think they might need. I don't know whether it's late in this draft or whether they want to get one free agency. I think they need a little bit more wide receiver depth too. Cowboys going to make some. They're going to make some moves.
Interior D line,
some real interior D line is one. So I don't know if they're going to pile up on stockpile draft picks and make moves in the draft, or here late in free agency they're about to clear up a lot of salary cap space so they can, try to make some acquisitions. But I right now, I am, like I said, I'm shocked that the Cowboys have approached this offseason in such a haphazard fashion. All right, somebody who has not approached the offseason in a haphazard fashion has been Nick Caserio. He's got a new nickname, Patrick. Have you heard his new nickname?
I've not.
It's Nick Cook-Serio instead of Nick Caserio because he's cooking in the kitchen all the time, always cooking up some deal. And he does. Honestly, I don't know if there's any GM in the NFL that's made as many moves on the job since they got on the job as Nick Caserio.
Who's the Rams? I don't know the Rams GM. I think the Rams GM may be up there.
Since Nick Caserio got on the job, right? Because I think when they win their Super Bowl, the Rams, was that 3 years ago?
3 years ago, right?
But I think because that was so. You're right. He may be the only one because that year they went wild in terms of the moves.
He was the F them picks guy, so
he was the F them picks guys. But I would say that Nick Caserio is on that level, if not surpassed him, because he does. He makes a lot of moves, and one of the moves that he was trying to make this past weekend, he offered, reportedly by Diana Rossini and a lot of other NFL insiders also reported this and confirmed it. Texas offered a third-round pick for Keenan Allen before Keenan Allen was eventually signed with the Bears.
Yeah, traded to the Bears,
He got traded to the Bears. But before that, the Texans offered a third-round pick. Aaron Wilson reported this too, offered a third-round pick for Keenan Allen. And apparently it didn't work out. I think it was a pick swap they offered and a third-round pick, and the Texans couldn't make it work, or at least the Chargers and the Texans couldn't make it work. But it would have been a great deal, or at least a great value for the Texans, because they would have picked up his salary, which was, I believe, around $18 million. He had a $5 million roster bonus, 31 years old, but he's had 100+ receptions in 4 of his last 5 seasons. And he plays 50% of his snaps in the slot. They need a slot receiver because Nico Collins and Tank Dell play mostly on the outside. So from a value standpoint, it would have been fantastic. And it looks like the Texans are targeting a wide receiver too. Now, remember, they traded out of the first round this season, I should say, for 2 picks in the second round, one in 2024 and one in 2025. And they traded that pick to the Minnesota Vikings. And the belief is that the theory is that Nick Caserio, that he likes the wide receivers in this draft, but at 23, because it's going to be a run on wide receivers, he don't know if that's the right spot to get the wide receiver that they like the most, or the ones they like the most. So he's trading out of that round because he likes the depth of the wide receiver draft, and then maybe they'll get some really good value at the wide receiver position because of how deep it is this year in the second round. If he didn't get the Keenan Allen deal done, like he wanted the Keenan Allen deal done, since he didn't, that they're going to still target a wide receiver in the second round. But if they had gotten the Keenan Allen deal done, then they could have went for something else, or like you said, traded back up into the first round with the draft capital that they want. So the belief is that the Texans want a wide receiver for CJ Stroud.
Yeah,
in short,
and they may end up trying to make another deal. There may be another wide receiver that becomes available during the draft or after the draft. If someone gets a wide receiver they like early in, and they may try and trade a veteran off because they've drafted a younger guy, they'll put in that could be a trade for Nick Caserio too. I was surprised to see the Keenan Allen news, because when we had heard they didn't want to get Mike Evans, you kind of assumed they were not going to go get a veteran wide receiver.
That's true. Good point.
But it does make more sense when you talk about the slot receiver, and also Keenan Allen would have been on the last year of a deal, so you wouldn't have not gotten him long term. You didn't necessarily have to make a long-term investment into the Keenan Allen market, whereas Mike Evans probably wanted 2 to 3 years. So that was going to give you a little bit more of a long-term investment. Keenan Allen, you could have rented for a year, which is more in that Caserio model.
Yeah, he's a rent-to-own guy. We know that. He likes shorter-term deals. That would have been the perfect one. So he still may have something up his sleeve, but at least right now that tracks and aligns that, hey, man, he wants a wide receiver for his young quarterback, CJ Stroud. And they did fulfill a lot of needs for the defense in free agency. Got your Daniil Hunter in free agency, Azeez Al-Shaair, the linebacker you got in free agency there. You traded for a cornerback in Okudah. So they did address a lot of the defensive issues. They signed a lot of DBs too. They re-signed a lot of their own DBs.
Yeah.
It's like 1 year, 2 year deals. So they did a lot of work on the defense side of the ball in free agency, and maybe they're thinking in the draft early on, let's get our young quarterback a weapon. Let's get him a nice another toy.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that. Give him another toy.
And they might go running back as well in this draft.
They could
get another guy behind Joe Mixon if they do not feel Dameon Pierce, and then they're going to move off of Dameon Pierce. Then you draft another running back and put him into that system as well.
I know it sounds crazy, but it wouldn't be wild to go tight end with them. Nope. If they talking about weapons, they could, because you could end up getting like the second best tight end in the draft.
Yeah.
Potentially in that spot if a JT Sanders drops right down to you. So just throwing it out there too, and then they can go with a lot of 12 personnel with him and Dalton Schultz. Just throwing it out there as a possibility. So I think the Texans could do a number of things there, but I do think they're thinking weapon for CJ Stroud. They're thinking offense, weapon for CJ. All right, we didn't get to a rant today. We'll do that on the other side. We'll do Rod's rant on the other side here. We'll push it back and also talk about the college football playoff payouts have been reported. How much each conference team is going to make if they make the college football playoff. It says a lot about what they think of the status, basically the status of different conferences in the new college football playoff landscape. We'll discuss that when we come back right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get into Rod's rant of the day. I want to talk about the NFL quarterback carousel. The NFL once again learned the lesson that I've always preached over and over again on this show, that nobody knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to quarterback. Nobody really knows what the hell they're doing, and you need to kind of accept that you don't know what you don't know, and that's why you should always just stockpile quarterbacks. Just stockpile them as much as you can. Whether you can do it through free agency, do it, in trades, in the draft, as much as you can, because that is the only way to ensure that you'll never be in quarterback hell, and to really ensure that you give yourself as many chances as possible to find a winner, right? To hit on the quarterback position. I mean, now we're learning. I mean, look at that 2021 quarterback class. Uh, I mean, now 3 of those guys have been traded. Zach Wilson taking number 2 overall. He has not been traded, but we all know how that's been worked out. All right, he's been benched, and won't be a starter with the Jets ever again. Trey Lance, who went number 3 overall, traded for a 4th round pick. Justin Fields, he went 11th overall. I said he was top 10, so I was wrong about that. He was 11th. He was traded for a 6th round pick. Could become a 4th round pick if he starts and plays more than 51% of the games, or at least 51% of the games. Mac Jones also traded for a 6th round pick as well. So, and then you go look at the other. There's other quarterback classes. You go look at them, and that 2022 quarterback class wasn't a heralded quarterback class. But we'll look at it overall now. Kenny Pickett was the only quarterback taken in the first round there. He's already been traded. Desmond Ridder was a 3rd round pick, traded. Malik Willis was a 3rd round pick. He's a Titans QB3 now. Hell, Matt Corral was drafted in 3rd round. He's been in the UFL already. Sam Howell, actually, it may have been the best quarterback of that group, and he was drafted in the 5th round. Or think about that. That 2022 quarterback class, Sam Howell was drafted 144th overall. And I'm not saying Sam Howell's great, but compare him to Kenny Pickett, Desmond Ridder, Malik Willis, Matt Corral, Bailey Zappi, Sam Howell. Who you taking, Patrick?
Probably Sam Howell, but Sam Howell's even got traded.
That's what I'm saying. Bailey Zappi, I guess, also the conversation. My point is, getting back to it, nobody knows what the hell they're doing. Yep. And the smart ones have figured out, you know what? I'm just going to give myself a lot of chances to hit and to miss on these quarterbacks. Look at the Eagles. Howie Roseman is smart about it. He's like, nah, we'll bring in. And then also the humility to realize you screwed up. To realize, like, yeah, you know what? I didn't hit on this one. Okay, moving on to the next one. That's why I love what Shanahan and the 49ers did. They went all in on Trey Lance. Was it a terrible trade? Of course it was a terrible trade. Yeah. Are they imbeciles when it comes to football? No, those are very smart football men. But nobody knows what the hell they're doing when it comes to quarterback. So even those very smart guys were in San Francisco thought Trey Lance would be it, and turns out he's not. But thank God, my boy Kyle Shanahan insisted on drafting Brock Purdy with the last pick, and he's like, nah, we should just draft quarterback. It's just a healthy habit to have as an organization. Drafted Brock Purdy, and look what happened. Hit. Did they know they're going to hit? Hell no, they didn't know they were going to hit. But they hit because he learned the same lesson of Tom Brady with Bill Belichick. Hey, man, 6th round pick. Everybody passed on him, ends up becoming the GOAT. So, hey, and what did Bill Belichick do? He kept trying to find the next Tom Brady. People didn't realize that. That's what Tom Brady realized. That's why Tom Brady was always uncomfortable and worried about his job. Because after Tom Brady became a Super Bowl winning quarterback, Bill Belichick drafted 9 quarterbacks in the years after Tom Brady was still their starting quarterback. He just kept drafting quarterbacks. He's like, nah, if I hit on this dude in the 6th round, I might hit on another one. Let me just keep on drafting until I might hit on one of these quarterbacks. And honestly, guys, that is the key. The Steelers are a great quality organization. Well, they just figured out, let's just stockpile them. Let's just bring in Justin Fields. Hey, bring in Russell Wilson too. Who the hell? We might draft one. Let's just keep on bringing them in. The Packers are probably the healthiest team in the NFL when it comes to quarterback. Right, in terms of the quarterback position. Why? Because they never ignore it. They always keep drafting quarterbacks. Whether it be high in the draft, they'll draft them in the middle rounds, they'll draft them late. Ron Wolf, famous GM for the Packers, always said, hey, man, I draft a quarterback every damn year if they let me. They won't let me. They'll shout me down. They won't let it happen. You always have to be thinking about the quarterback position, because the truth is, the late, great Bill Walsh, all right, always had my favorite quote about quarterback, and I will make sure I get it right, because very few people can coach the quarterback position. Even fewer can evaluate them. And by the way, Bill Walsh, the great Bill Walsh, who, by the way, went into his coach, went to the coaching staff meeting one day and asked all of his members on his staff, "Hey, do y'all think we should trade for this guy, Steve Young? I really like him. I think we should try to, develop this guy, bring him in." And none of his coaches raised their hand. They were like, "Nah, we don't like that kid. Man, we think he's pretty much a bust already. We don't think he's gonna be a good quarterback." And Bill Walsh walked out of the room and said, "To hell with y'all. I'm the man. I'm doing it anyway." And went and got his quarterback, Steve Young. When nobody else agreed that he should get Steve Young, he went and did it. And that's probably the greatest quarterback guru in the history of the NFL. And by the way, even Bill Walsh screwed up quarterback evaluations. I got quotes of Bill Walsh talking about how Rick Meyer is going to be the next great quarterback in the NFL. He said this about Rick Meyer. He said, "Rick has a very good arm. His drop is smooth and efficient. He can run the open field. He is agile, quick on his feet, and plays with a lot of poise. He is not a guy who demands a lot of attention. He is sharp, a natural football player who I think is just the ideal quarterback prospect." Yeah, how'd that work out for Rick Meyer? See, even Bill Walsh would screw this up. And Bill Walsh knew quarterback better than anybody else. So the truth is, you're going to screw up QB. Everybody does. What you got to be willing to do is admit your mistake, and you must always be stockpiling quarterbacks over and over again. And I don't think and by the way, the NFL has decided, because they know how hard it is at quarterback. Now, this may be a byproduct, but I think it was actually one of the main motivating factors. With the rookie wage scale, what it ultimately did was decrease the cost of the most important and the most valuable position in football, the quarterback position. And it gave you what amounts to kind of a tax break, right? Uncle Sam gives you tax breaks on things that are good for the economy, right? Families are good for the economy. You having kids? Tax break. All right. Small businesses are good for the economy. You got a small business? Tax break. Property owners are good for the economy. You own your own property? Tax break. And it gives you tax breaks for things that they think are good for the economy. The NFL's the same way. Their CBA. It incentivizes teams now to draft quarterbacks. And if a quarterback doesn't work out, it's not debilitating to your franchise like it used to be. Now, when you were paying a Sam Bradford all that money, and as a rookie who hadn't proven anything, it was debilitating to move on from a rookie quarterback that you had already drafted that high, because financially you were tied to him and connected to him for such a long period of time. And it was such a large amount of money that was guaranteed to those guys that you, as a franchise, you had to double down on that investment. Now you don't have to double down. You can admit your mistake, move on, and go draft a quarterback really high again, because you're getting them at a discounted rate for those first 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you can decide whether I want to marry this quarterback or whether I want to just be engaged and I want to move on and try to find somebody else. The NFL is giving you that opportunity. So why would you handcuff yourself to a quarterback that you're uncertain about? That is the sin. The unforgivable sin is not to draft a quarterback and miss on him. That happens all the time with quality organizations. They draft the quarterback high and miss on him. Pittsburgh Steelers just did it. Hell, the 49ers just did it. You can draft the quarterback high and miss on him. That happens, all right? That's just part of it. What you can't do is double down on that mistake. And that's where teams get in trouble. That is to me, as a GM, that is the malpractice, Patrick. That's when ultimately you have kind of failed your organization. You got to know when you made a mistake, and then you got to be willing to admit, all right, you know what? This quarterback I drafted, he's good, but he ain't great. And that's also another thing too, right? Look at Patrick Mahomes, his situation with Andy Reid. The Chiefs decided, Alex Smith is good, but he ain't great. And you get to a point where not only when you find a franchise quarterback, a quarterback that's good, then you have to be thinking about Cowboys. You have to be thinking about, all right, can he be great? Can he put the cape on? And if he can't, then you got to upgrade again. And that's what Jim Harbaugh did when he had Alex Smith. That's what my man Shano did even with Brock Purdy. Remember, this offseason, there are reports that he went to Tom Brady. Hey, Tom Brady, you sure you're retired? Because if you're not, you need to come out here and come win a championship with these 49ers, man. We ready for you. And he told Brock Purdy in the hospital when he's recovering from his surgery, listen, man, I'm trying to get Brady. You're the starter unless I can get Brady, unless I can upgrade. Imagine if I told my wife that, like, baby, I'm going to marry you unless I can get this really smoking hot dime piece over here, then I might upgrade to her. That's what you got to do. You get to those levels. You draft one. You're like, all right, man, I hope this guy can be good. And once you figure out they're good, Philadelphia Eagles did it. All right. Once you figure out they're good, let's draft. I know. Can he be great? I don't know. Well, then let's go get somebody that can be great.
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's do it. That's the levels to this thing.
That is, and that's for Cowboys fans who are screaming at the radio right now. You can't be mad at Dak Prescott for being the guy there. The problem is that the Cowboys have never really put a backup behind him to challenge him, where they should have been drafting people throughout the years. And then all the times that Dak Prescott's missed 2 or 3 games, instead of putting in a Cooper or somebody like that, or somebody where you go, well, we know this guy's never going to be a star. We know this guy's never going to get us there because he just doesn't have the traits of that to do that. So there's never really a chance for someone to take over. You constantly are drafting players that when you put them in, sometimes you find Tom Brady when Drew Bledsoe goes down. And you can find those guys that way, or you find Tony Romo when Drew Bledsoe goes down. But you find players that way. But it's you like that's the reality is it if you want to get mad at the Cowboys, it's not for re-signing Dak, it's not for doing any of that. Get mad they have not tried to add quarterbacks behind. They finally did it last year by getting Trey Lance, but we haven't even said Trey Lance. We'll see this season if he stays on the roster. If they keep him, that he hopefully would be the guy, would be the backup. Hopefully that you would try and get him a chance in there. And then we'll say there is one guy in the NFL, as you said earlier, the Packers. Ron Wolf is the guy that if I was going to ask somebody to tell me who's the best quarterback in the draft is, that's who I would ask first. Because Ron Wolf, he was the one who traded for Brett Favre in his first year at Green Bay because he wanted to draft him in New York when he was with the Jets, and the Falcons took him the pick before. And so then he traded for him the next year when the Falcons were like, this isn't working. He's awful. We're getting rid of him. And they traded for him. So him, I will ask and say, okay, who's the best quarterback in this draft? But everybody, even him, I'm sure is fallible at a point and has missed. And, he could tell you the other reality. There's no sure thing in this draft. There's nobody in this draft that you look at and say, oh, no, I would take him. You say, there's guys that I'll take in the 4th or 5th round because I feel the upside's really good. But I don't think there's a first-round pick who's going to come in and save your franchise unless you put him with a perfect coach and everything else. But
exactly.
But if you go the 4th or 5th round, you may be able to find somebody who's basically been in a bad system or a system that didn't work for them as well. And if you bring them in and give them the right coaching, then they can all of a sudden be a star.
Yeah, I mean, Caleb Williams is seen as the one that can be the savior. But as I pointed out, I mean, you got a 20% to a 30% hit rate on quarterbacks drafted in the first round. And once you have a hit, once you hit on the quarterback, then you got to figure out if that quarterback can be a great quarterback that can go win you a championship. So I just don't think there's any the quarterback. Listen, the quarterback evaluation in the NFL, the reason that it is so flawed is because they want to turn it into a science. Yeah. They want so badly for it to be a science. And I've always said it can't be a science, right? A science is something. That's why they have the scientific method. It's something you can replicate over and over again. A systematic enterprise of organized knowledge, ideas, and you can test it over and over again. Testable explanations, right? The scientific method. You do this, you add this, and you will get this result. And NFL wants the quarterback evaluation to be that. Hand size, right? Oh, he's got big hands. Oh, he's this tall. Oh, he throws the ball this hard. Oh, look at these stats. If he got completion percentage here, and he's that this there, then this formula will lead to us. It'll equal a good quarterback. And it's like, no, it's not like that. It's not. It's an art form, and art can be, right? Art can be a number of things, right? Art can be almost anything. Any human activity can be, basically described as art, right? Whether depending on how you want to express it, and it's all about expression, and it's all about the ability to for athletes, and at least in that situation, the ability for them to create. Right from the canvas of the offense they're in and the weapons they're working with, and that makes coaches really uncomfortable to think of the quarterback situation like that because they know, well, then my ability to practice these situations and my ability as a coach to evaluate these situations, evaluate these players, it's not as big of a contributing factor, right? In the success overall of the quarterback. And the truth is, I don't think it is. And even Bill Walsh, late in his life, he started to say that. He said he called it an instinctive, spontaneous, natural response to situations. When he was asked about what makes a great quarterback. And they were asked about what are you talking about? What is that? He's like, well, that's what it takes to be successful. He said that is 10 to 15% of the time. a quarterback's greatness depends on spontaneous instincts making a phenomenal difference in the game. He said about 10 to 15% of the time in games I observed, the quarterback's got to go just make a play out of nothing. Just go be a elite. Put the cape on, as I always say. A quarterback's got to put the cape on. And you got to find a quarterback that can do that 15% of the time. If you find a great one, they can do it a quarter or a third of the time, like a Tom Brady or a Patrick Mahomes. But if you don't find a quarterback that has that instinctive, spontaneous, natural response to critical situations, then they're just going to be a good quarterback, not a great one.
Yeah.
And you never know that. You won't know that until you're in the game. You won't even know it in practice a lot of the times. You know until you're in the game, in the situation to go, well, damn, he can't do it, can he? He ain't got the it quality. He ain't got whatever it is, that je ne sais quoi. You won't learn it until they're in it. And you won't learn it from their college film either, because they're not playing against the best. They're not playing with the best. You won't find it out. Brock Purdy. You won't find it out till they're in the league. Tom Brady.
Yep.
Patrick Mahomes. We watched Patrick Mahomes in person. Y'all saw that? Nope. We ain't nobody saw that. Because it's all about where you land, the compatibility. I always say choosing a quarterback is like choosing a significant other. The woman you marry, not the hottest woman you ever dated. She's the one that was right for you. So there's also that compatibility of choosing the right quarterback, how Andy Reid chose Patrick Mahomes because of Brett Veach. There's so many factors that there's no way you could predict and you could properly project how these quarterbacks are going to work out. And we know it's more about the intangibles than the tangibles, more about the immeasurables than even the measurables that you can get. You can't predict it.
Yeah.
So just accept that. Accept that chaos. Accept the fact you can't do it, and then accept the in my opinion, the possibility that you're going to make a mistake and screw it up more than half the time. But if you continue to give yourself more opportunities, bringing more quarterbacks in, stockpiling them, you'll hit more. All right. Now, I'm not saying you'll hit more than you miss, but at least your hit rate will go up. That's the only way it ever will. I'm talking to you, Cowboys, who drafted the fewest amount of quarterbacks in the NFL since 1999. Talking to you, Cowboys.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, you always talk draft picks or lottery picks or lottery tickets.
Yep.
Quarterbacks are Mega Millions. They're Powerball. They're the big ones. You
love it. That's money. Good stuff. Well done. We're going to end on a high note there, like George Costanza style. Man, Patrick ended on a high note. That's beautiful. I love that. All right. We come back. We'll have what the facts, what the stats. I want to talk about Wemby and his fantastic performance he had against, was it the Nets they played?
Yes.
In that second game? Oh, that was great. Actually, he had a decent performance, I believe, in that game versus the Nuggets. But I want to talk about that and get into some NBA news notes. The Nuggets. Mavs on a bit of a winning streak. Mavs winning some big games, too. We'll talk about that. All that and more right here. We're going to return with the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Just last week, we had Charlie Wilson, the president, CEO, and general manager of Callahan's on, and gave me some tips about how to get rid of the weeds in the yard, try to make that grass in the yard look as golf course green as possible. I'm trying to win the Lawn of the Month club in my neighborhood, and it takes a little bit of hard work, but what it takes, even more so than a little bit of hard work and some elbow grease, is the knowledge and the supplies and resources you can get over at Callahan's. Now, he told me about the pre-merges. To put that down, got to tell you, I'm already seeing the effects of it. Already seeing some of the weeds die. I'm seeing a little bit more grass out there. Pretty soon I'm going to put the weed and feed down. You can find that at Callahan's as well. We know Easter arrives a little bit early this year, so be sure to get up to Callahan's. Make sure you get all the supplies you need to make sure that your yard is going to be looking as spry and healthy as possible. But also up there at Callahan's with Easter coming, they do a lot of great things. You got the baby chicks and the ducklings and rabbits arriving at Callahan's General Store. Plus, you can pick up all your feed and your food and your supplies there as well. But we know Easter means spring, and now that spring has arrived, you want to make sure your yard is looking healthy and it's looking fresh. It's looking really green. That's what I'm about. That's my mission, and Callahan's is going to help me accomplish that mission, and they can help you do the same. So, like I said, pre-emergence, you want to put that down first, such as that Barricade product, that Nitro Phos. You can keep the weeds away in the next few weeks, and I'm in this process getting ready to put the weed and feed down to grow the good grass and keep the crabgrass and dandelions out of the yard. And those nighttime temperatures rise a little closer to the 60s. You got that Bermuda seed you can put out there, and that those can replace all the burned out grass or all the grass that was damaged during those winter freezes. So if you need to get any tips or any supplies to make sure that your yard and your lawn are looking top notch, you do it at Callahan's, folks. They do a great job there. Also, Callahan's has bags of soil, amendments, special fertilizer to get your lawn back into a beautiful, lush, and healthy looking. Also, don't forget it's time to start planting those seedlings for vegetables in your gardens. They also have those supplies at Callahan's. They got everything you need at Callahan's, still there at 501 Bastrop Highway between downtown and airport. And it's any day you can make it a Callahan's day. All right, a couple of stats to support my argument that Victor Wembanyama, should win Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA. How about this? We look at the 10 most single game blocks recorded this season. He's got the most with 10. He's got the tied for the third most with 8, then the fourth most with 7. He also has, he's got 7 block performances. So he's got essentially, he is on here 5 times out of the top 10.
Yeah.
If you look at most single game blocks, Chet Holmgren has 2, and he's the next closest.
Yeah, no, it's another level. It's just another level.
What, I mean, come on. Really, just because they're a bad team, they're not going to give him Defensive Player of the Year. How about this? He joins Tim Duncan as the only rookie to record 200-plus blocks in the season since blocks became a stat officially in 73-74. What are we doing here, folks? Are we not going to really give him Defensive Player of the Year? And he's also averaging like over a steal a game. He's almost at like 1.2 or 3 steals per game, too.
No, and I think the biggest thing is if you look at their defensive rating with him on the court and with him off, that it's a stark difference that they're one of the worst defensive teams in the league when he's off the court, and they're not when he is on. That if you say, okay, well, if you're the worst then, and then he pulls you up to like middle of the pack, then it says pretty good. It's a pretty good defender. It'll be interesting. But you remember his quote that he said the other day, it's okay. He can win it. He had a good season, but it's not his time anymore to that.
I agree. What's the record for consecutive Defensive Player of the Year awards won?
I don't know. They probably gave it.
I'm going to predict that Wemby is going to be on there.
I could believe it.
I think he's going to do like 3 years in a row or something crazy.
I could believe they gave it to Jordan a bunch in a row.
Defensive Player of the Year?
Yeah. And Akeem has won it a few times.
Oh, Akeem probably was on there. Honestly, it might be him or like David Robinson or something.
Yeah, but I think because, and that was a problem, is that like Akeem and David and all those guys played at the same time.
You're right. They kind of went back and forth. That's a great point. That's good stuff. Okay, here's another stat for you, kind of backing up one of my other predictions for the NBA that I think Luka should win MVP. If you look at the Mavs, they're 5-1 their last 6 games. And they're often in that time span, in last 6 games, 3rd best offensive rating, 8th best defensive rating, and their net rating is 3rd best. If they right now, I think they're still the 7th seed or something like that in the West, and I believe they're 3.5 games out of the 4th seed. If they can get to the 4th seed, then Luka's MVP case is real strong. Right now, it's not as strong because they're just the 7th seed. So
that'd be there. So for your Defensive Player of the Years, there's 2 guys who have won it 4 times, but they had a break in between the 2 times they went back to back. And Dikembe and Ben Wallace.
Dikembe
Mutombo won it 4 times. Ben Wallace won it 4 times, but they had a break in between, so not 3 in a row.
So it's only 2 in a row.
Rudy Gobert has won twice and then won again. He is 3, and Dwight Howard won 3 in a row. From 2009 to 2011, Dwight Howard won 3 in a row.
Okay. I think Wemby will get 3 in a row in his career. I do.
And Jordan only won it once. Akeem won it twice. He won it 93 and 94.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Good stuff. I didn't realize Dwight Howard has the record for consecutive.
Yes, for 3
awards. Wow. There you go. Good stuff there, Patrick. All right. Before we go to break here, Scotty Scheffler, shout out to the Lifetime Longhorn, has broken the PGA Tour's single season prize money record 2 years in a row. Did it in 2022, 14 million. Did it in 2023 at 21 million. And after winning the Players Championship, Scotty Scheffler is at 11 million earnings this year with 6 months left in the season. Straight cash, homie. Yeah. All right. We'll come back. We'll get into the Longhorn men and women's basketball teams and their seeding in the NCAA tournament. We'll also, for my man CB, I'll tell you what I call Cinderellas in the tournament. We'll get to that. We'll get into the big trade that really shocked the NFL. Not that the trade happened, but the price tag, the value of the trade in return. We'll get into that. Justin Fields heading to the Pittsburgh Steelers. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming right back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast, Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. Thanks to my man Patrick Davis, the Idealionaire, always coming up with creative ways to keep the vibe. It's a good vibe on the show, a feel good vibe on the show, I should say. So thanks to my man Patrick. And Mondays are for Smooth Soul, our Smooth Soul Mondays, to make sure that you get your Monday started off the right way. Those can be tough. So anytime you got a case of the Mondays, my man Patrick doing a great job to relieve you of any of those Monday blues with Smooth Soul Monday. You also can be a part of the show on the text line 512-447-3776. You also can hit us up via Twitter. I'm at Rod Davis in the Twitterverse. My man Patrick Davis said it's Patrick Davis in the Twitterverse. We'll get into the Texas basketball teams, the men and the women. Men with a 7 seed and the women with a number 1 seed overall, not overall, but a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. So we'll get to that and talk about that coming up here in this segment. Also, the Justin Fields trade to the Pittsburgh Steelers, which was a huge move because I think a lot of people expected Justin Fields to be traded for a higher pick, a first, or some even said first round pick, but he ended up being traded for a 6th round pick. We'll talk about what that means for the Steelers and what that means for the quarterback market and the quarterback carousel in the NFL. We'll have our horn headlines from my man Patrick Davis will get us informed of all the big stories of the day. We'll go behind the Burn-Ons curtain. Next segment talks Texas spring football, 1 day away, 24 hours away from Texas starting the spring football, and there's a lot of excitement about that. So we'll talk some Texas football on the other side. Before we do any of that, let's get to the horn headlines. Let's get informed, updated from my man Patrick Davis. Then we'll come back, discuss Texas basketball with the 7 seed for the men and a 1 seed for the women. Patrick, do us a favor. Hit us with the horn headlines, please.
Your horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. Both the men's and women's NCAA tournament brackets were set yesterday. The men's number 1 seeds are UConn, Houston, Purdue, and North Carolina. Texas received a 7 seed in the Midwest and will await the winner of Tuesday's Colorado State and Virginia game to find out their opponent for Thursday's first-round game in Charlotte. The Longhorn women earned their first number 1 seed since 2004, along with other 1 seeds, South Carolina, Iowa, and USC. Texas will start the tournament against Drexel on Friday afternoon. Texas softball finished off BYU in a doubleheader on Friday with a 7-3 win, followed by another run rule win, 10-0, in 5 innings to close out the series. They will be back in action on Wednesday for another top 20 matchup in Tallahassee against Florida State. Texas baseball lost their series to Washington over the weekend, 2-1, with a 4-3 series salvaging win on Sunday in a game shortened to 8 innings due to rain. LeBaron Johnson Jr. posted his best start of the season, pitching 6 innings with only 1 earned run and 10 strikeouts. However, a poor performance from the bullpen would cost Texas. On Saturday, Ace Whitehead pitched 7 innings in relief, only allowing 1 hit, but Texas could not rally. Texas will take on Air Force in a mini-series starting Tuesday in Austin. In the NBA, the Spurs split their 2 games played at the Moody Center this weekend, losing to the Nuggets on Friday and then getting an overtime win against the Nets, 122-115, where Wembanyama put up 33 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 blocks. The Houston Rockets won their matchup against the struggling Cavs team on Saturday, keeping them just 3.5 games out of the play-in tournament. And the Mavericks knocked off the Nuggets with a Kyrie Irving buzzer beater, 107-105. The Mavs and Spurs will meet up on Tuesday. And in the PGA, Scottie Scheffler won the Players' Championship, coming from 5 strokes back at the start of the final round. Scheffler posted a 20-under for the tournament to become the first ever back-to-back winner in the 50 years of the tournament. And that is your horn headlines.
All right, let's talk about the Longhorn basketball teams, the ladies and the men. The men are a 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. A lot of people thought they would be an 8 seed. Some people even had them projected, Patrick, as a 9 seed. they got the bump. Was it a Big 12 bump? Are we talking about the Big 12 overall reputation for being the toughest basketball conference in the country? And even though the Longhorns did not necessarily have a great record in Big 12 play, but just the strength of the schedule and how tough the schedule was, did that play a role in the bump? Or are we talking about some other macro factors?
I think that played a little bit, but you can say that also wasn't necessarily the biggest because Oklahoma doesn't make the tournament. And if they were going to overrank Big 12 opponents, then Oklahoma definitely gets in. They had a decent enough season to get in. But again, why I said that game against Oklahoma at the end of the season was important. You have to be 500 in Big 12 play. They were 500 in Big 12 play. That makes sure you're in the tournament. But I think the other big part about it is non-conference. The committee made a very big deal about non-conference schedule this season. We saw Iowa State was not even considered basically for a 1 seed because of their non-conference schedule. It was weak. Texas played a hard enough non-conference that they rewarded them for that. And I think they took some of the other teams that were projected ahead of them, knocked them down a peg. If Texas was kind of projected across most boards as an 8 seed, all you got to do is have 2 or 3 teams that are a 6 or a 5 drop down, or a 7 drop down, and all of a sudden you move up to a 7 seed. But I think it was more a case of non-conference games and a couple other conferences they didn't think were as good that Texas kind of got a benefit of the doubt and moved up ahead of other teams because of the season-long effort. The fact that Dylan DeSue was hurt at the beginning of the season and they were still able to have a decent non-conference run because of Shedrick's play, because of Max Asmus's play in non-conference. That I think is a huge help going into it, that they can look and say, well, they played a UConn and hung with a UConn that's a 1 seed, even though Dylan DeSue was not in the game. So if you look at those things, and I think Shedrick was out in that game too. So they were able to play with some good teams before Dylan DeSue was even on the roster. That was where a lot of these guys that are from other conferences probably watched more of Texas games in non-conference. So I think they see with Dylan DeSue, they know that that's a team that can compete. They have talent on the team, and it helped them out. It helped them bump up to a 7. But the doom and gloom by some people that they were a 9 seed, 10 seed, wasn't going to make the tournament, that was a little overstated. I think they were going to be an 8 seed and then got bumped up to a 7.
Yeah, no, I never bought into that stuff that they were on the verge of being out of the tournament. But everything I've seen is said they were going to be an 8 seed, and I've seen a couple of projections had them as a 9 seed. I don't really see any projections that had them as a 7 seed. That's why I wanted to get your thoughts. So I thought that was a little surprising. I know you watch a ton of college basketball. Do you watch enough college basketball to say that you have watched a lot of Colorado State or Virginia?
No, I've watched Virginia. I think I've watched Virginia play maybe twice this year.
Okay, there you go.
And I don't. I have not watched any Colorado State. And I've watched highlights and stuff now on Sunday night. I watched them after Selection Sunday. I was watching the Spurs and had that on another, and was watching my phone. Was watching some Colorado State stuff.
Multiple basketball games. Had to watch the Spurs, though. I feel you on that. Yeah, that's your team.
But I was watching. So you was doing 2 things at once. But Virginia team. You've watched this Virginia team is built the same way they've been built for years and years. They're a defense first team. They struggle with offense. That has hurt them in March pretty much every single year because they're a team that just doesn't have the firepower, that if the officiating goes any way but their way, if they start to call fouls on them, then the game's over. They just don't have the offensive firepower. For Texas, the positive side is they can play defensively. They can play offensively. The question is, do they get in that mindset? They make the change quick enough as a team and become aggressive or become, back off enough. They've had problems this year where they didn't make that change quick enough. Dylan DeSue gets in foul trouble. That hurts you. Or you don't make the change quick enough. You don't get to the free throw line, and all of a sudden you're trying to fight back out of a big gap. So, there's things you can do. But I personally would rather play Virginia. I know that both of them have guards that are going to give Texas kind of fits. Colorado State is going to give Texas guards fits because they're going to attack Max Asmus on the defensive end and really go after him and try and get easy buckets that way. For Virginia, they're going to stop Max Asmus and they're going to try and stop him. Yeah. They have really good defensive guards. So either way, you're going to have issues at the guard position for Texas in those games. The guards are going to have to step up. We knew from the beginning Max Asmus needs to step up in this tournament for the Horns to have a chance. But the good news is neither one of these teams is a really tall team. And
not inside.
Dylan Mitchell and Dylan DeSue should be able to get inside and get some buckets. If you can attack inside and get buckets and attack in the paint, which Texas has done a few times this year against smaller teams, that is a way to beat either one of these guys. You just have to get to the paint, though.
Yeah, you're right there because Virginia's leading rebounder is like a 6'8" wing, something like that. So they don't have size inside, but they have length outside. Does that matter? Like that on the perimeter?
Yeah.
Like Virginia, I mean, they have a ACC Defensive Player of the Year. Actually, is their 6'3" guard Reese Beekman, and he's a really good. He's also the leading scorer too. Their second lead scorer is a 6'4" guard. They have Isaac McNeely, I believe is his name, and he's a good player. So Virginia worries me just because that they have long, athletic, defensive-minded guard play. As you pointed out, Virginia, that's just their model anyway. That worries me against Texas just because, if you get Tyrese Hunter, and Tyrese Hunter's on and aggressive, then it changes the dynamic. But if you don't get Tyrese Hunter, which we never know, that's, inconsistently, he's consistently inconsistent, if anything. But if you don't get that, then they have the ability to take Max Asmus out of it.
Yeah.
But you're right. They don't have the resources to stop Dylan Dessou. The only thing that can stop Dessou is foul trouble. As long as he stays out of foul trouble, Texas should have that advantage with either one of these matchups, as you pointed out. The guard play worries me more against Virginia than it does against Colorado State.
It does, because in Virginia, you need IT Horton, you need Tyrese Hunter to step up. And that has not been a guarantee. That has not been something you can count on all season. They've both had games where they played better. IT Horton has started to pick up in that mid-range game, which I think will be big for Texas. Just anything you can do to make baskets and to make the defenders have to help off of Max Asmus, to give Max Asmus a little bit of room. We know what he can do. I've given him grief all season, and I've been mad at him all season because there's times where he doesn't put in the effort, where he offensively decides to stand back and just take one defender out of the equation. And when you're supposed to be the central point of an offense, you cannot do that. And defensively, if he's not scoring, he becomes lazier on defense. So you need him to say, Max, you have at worst, this is your last game in college basketball, every single game. At best, you have 5 games left or 6 games left in your career. So there is no reason not to go full force every single play, every single minute, run around as much as you can, because this is it. This is the college career. It's over soon. So this is where you have to go. And Dylan Dessou is the same thing. Dylan Dessou's a little different. Dylan Mitchell a little different because they're going to be trying out for the NBA soon. Max Asmus is going to have a harder time getting to the NBA at a level because of his size. But those guys, you're going to want to push and say, this is it. This is the end of college for you guys. Go out there and, move without the ball. Set screens. They set screens better at the end of the season as well, Texas did. So if you're setting screens off the ball, if you're moving without the ball, you're creating and then finding ways to get Tyrese Hunter to drive to the bucket. You have longer guys. Tyrese Hunter can be quick, though. And if Tyrese Hunter can get that first step and get a guy behind him, that's how you draw fouls. That's how you get layups and A&1s, is getting a guy behind you, having another defender come over, and then either you hit Dessou for an easy dunk or hit Dylan Mitchell for an easy dunk, or that defender doesn't come off of Dessou, worried about that, you get an easy bucket and an A&1 with the guard fouling you. Those are all things you can do against either one of these teams. The question is, you can't turn the ball over. Simple things. Can't turn the ball over, have to get to the free throw line. That's been kind of a simple, you have to keep reminding them both times. They should be able to out-rebound both teams. They should be able to score in the paint against both teams. But we'll know more, and I'll do even more deep diving into whoever will be playing once that happens on Tuesday night, and we'll go Wednesday, deep dive a lot more, and we'll be ready on Thursday for a big game.
Yeah, no, I will too, and I look forward to your breakdown and analysis. You're right. Both of these squads that Texas could play could provide potential problems for Texas, but I think Texas could offer more problems to them. I mean, I think Texas offers up more problems for the opposing team, no matter who it's going to be. That's only if they get good guard play. That's going to be key for Texas.
Yeah.
Dylan Dessou, I'm not worried about.
You can't have 2 starters and one of them decides he's going to get taken out of the game. Like if you say IT Horton doesn't play like a starter and Tyrese Hunter doesn't play like a starter and Dylan Mitchell doesn't play like a starter, it's going to be hard if they double on Max Asmus and ball deny Max Asmus. Dylan Dessou basically has to win a game by himself, which he's done, but that's not how you'd like to win games in the tournament.
Yeah, that's gonna be hard to win that way in the tournament against quality teams. Yeah, so the good stuff there. Also, Virginia plays at a sluggish pace, so they like playing ugly basketball games and they want to make it ugly. I don't want to see Texas in an ugly game because Texas can play ugly too. I would say against Colorado State, that'll be more of a free flowing game. Texas athleticism will be allowed to, I think, kind of be showcased in that game because Colorado State wants to play an up and down style.
Yeah.
That's not what Virginia wants to do. They want to slow it down and make it ugly. And Texas has a tendency at times to play the style of their opponent, to play to their, like to kind of let them dictate the tempo. And I'm afraid of that with Virginia. But anyway, we'll get into it. We don't know exactly who they're going to play.
I will say this. When you talk about those running and going teams, though, what worries you is Texas hits a scoring slump in pretty much every game and has for, I don't know, 5 years now through multiple coaches, through 3 coaches, through Shaka, through Beard, everybody. They just keep doing this. So there's been those points where they are going to have their slumps. And if you play Virginia, you can play defense and there'll just be not much scoring for a while. Against a Colorado State, coming off of rebounds, coming off of those, it's a way you can give up a 10, 12, 15-0 run real quick. Right. So that's why it worries me a little bit more for Colorado State, because those runs where Texas just kind of the offense dries up, all of a sudden that shift in momentum can go flying the other direction against teams like Colorado State.
That's true. Virginia, yeah. What's what kind of scoring streak are they going to go on?
Yeah,
exactly.
You can go. Well, it's been 8 minutes and they went on a 6-0 run.
Their run's not going to be that devastating. That's a good point. All right, let's talk about the NFL trade. Oh, sorry, the ladies, because I want to disrespect the ladies. They did get a 1 seed. They're going to play Drexel in the first round. They're expected to pretty much smash them to smithereens, Drexel. So that's not really a lot to break down there, but the ladies did get a 1 seed. Remarkable considering what they've been through, losing Rory Harmon. We know that, they're really good with Madison Booker. She's fantastic, but what the potential of this team could have been with both Madison Booker and a Rory Harmon. You're talking about a team that a lot of people might have had them as one of the favorites to win the whole damn thing. They still get the 1 seed though. So great job for the ladies and a great accomplishment for Vic Schaefer and his crew. All right, let's get to the big trade in the NFL. Justin Fields. We were wondering with the quarterback carousel what was going to happen to Justin Fields. Well, now we do have clarity. He was traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers for a 6th round pick. Got to give props to the Steelers front office. They've been able to overhaul their quarterback room completely in just one off season. Remember, they did have Mitch Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. Now in 2024, they'll have Russell Wilson as the starter. They're paying him less than $2 million because the Denver Broncos are paying most of that salary for him in 2024. And they get Justin Fields for the last year of his rookie deal. So he's at a discount as well. They get him for $3.2 million. So you're talking about less than $6 million for a quarterback drafted 11th overall and a Super Bowl winning quarterback veteran like Russell Wilson. That is great value. I don't know if it's going to work out. I'm just looking at it from a value perspective. That's the biggest factor in determining whether a talent acquisition was a win for a team or whether it was something that can really count against them. So whether it was a win or a loss in terms of talent acquisition is all about the value. That is tremendous value for 2 quarterbacks who could end up being starting caliber quarterbacks for you. I should mention that if Justin Fields plays 51% of the games, the 6th round pick becomes a 4th round pick. So there is that. So that there is that stipulation there, that contingency. But right now it looks like Russell Wilson is going to be the starter. But I'm telling you, Patrick, they want to look at Justin Fields. There's no doubt they want to look at Justin Fields. And with Arthur Smith's new system that he has, they're hoping that one or both of these quarterbacks, likely it will just be one of them, they'll experience that quarterback renaissance, that quarterback resurrection that we've seen from quarterbacks like Baker Mayfield, from QBs like Geno Smith, from quarterbacks like Jared Goff. Tua is in that conversation too. Just quarterbacks that people thought were lost causes. But then they get a new offense, get a new system they're playing in, new change of scenery, new culture, and then they're able to reinvent themselves and maximize their skill set that once was obviously highly projected and highly touted. So they're hoping that one of those guys can be that quarterback, and I don't know which one is more likely to be the success story. right now? I think that's the question. Is it Russell Wilson or is it Justin Fields?
Well, I mean, I think Russell Wilson is the one that's the easier answer because we know he's had success before, and Justin Fields has never had success at the NFL level. So the easy answer is, well, Russell Wilson, at least we know he, at least at some point, could. We have no idea if Justin Fields will ever be able to do it. I think that Justin Fields, what's interesting too, is you're throwing in a guy where if you look at the culture of the outlying or the description of the two teams that he went from is the Bears, who are a blue collar defensive based. We just try and go with the ball. We just try and run the ball, and we're hard nosed team, to the Steelers, who are very much that same team. However, when you think about the leadership of those two teams, the difference is astronomical of the leadership of the Bears for the past few years and how they have just not been able to put anything together, how they are constantly losing almost every trade they're in, how they are not signing, or they're paying free agents too much money, that they're not re-signing guys, they're trading them off for pennies on the dollar, and all of that, to where the Steelers have pulled together the most savvy quarterback room for almost nothing. And then trade Kenny Pickett off, who I believe the report was that Kenny Pickett would not suit up as a third string reserve back in the final games of the season because he either was claiming he was still hurt or whatever else. So they were like, cool, if you're not part of it, you're not part of it. We're not playing the game that you're the starter and nothing else matters. We're not playing that game.
Did you forget you were Kenny Pickett? What's that?
Yeah, like wait, what did you do early in the season where you can have this attitude? So he ends up on Philadelphia. But you are able to get back 2 7s for him and move up in a pick swap for fourth for a third. So in reality, and you've kind of gained picks and spent under $10 million for two quarterbacks. That is ridiculous in a world where Atlanta gave up $180 million to Kirk Cousins. And you have to figure that the Bears called Atlanta and wanted 2 first or something like that, something crazy for Justin Fields. That's the reason that deal was not done, because I don't know any other reason why you wouldn't pull the trigger on a 6th-round pick conditional could go up to a 4th.
No, that's a good point. I don't know how they went. The value of Justin Fields went from a guy some people were saying was going to be a 2nd-round pick in exchange. So I think Mel Kiper even said it'd be a 1st-round pick in exchange for Justin Fields. And now they're getting a 6th-round pick. They somehow miscalculate the market.
No, it's that Brian Burns. That Brian Burns, the Panthers, another franchise that is just staying at the lowest picks. They first of all, they make the trade to trade up to get Bryce Young, who then either it could be situation, but doesn't look like the right pick right now. It looked like CJ Stroud was the guy. So just so far after 1 year, everything could change, but CJ Stroud so far clearly had the better first year. Clearly won a playoff game.
There's no question.
And then they apparently at one point had multiple first in a deal from the Rams for Brian Burns. And then they don't even get close to that when they trade him off. So those franchises that just don't know how to play the market, don't know when to pull the trigger, always waiting for the better deal and then realize they missed out. You can't keep waiting for that special perfect deal to roll through where everything's going to be all right because, oh my God, we found now this guy's going to give me 4 firsts for them. That's never happening. When you get that good deal, you have to make it right away. And that's one thing we can give Nick Caserio credit on is Nick Caserio has made deals of this is it. This is what we're going. Do we feel good about that? Make the move. And we talked about it earlier, the Keenan Allen trade. Do we feel good about this? No, that's as high as we're willing to go on that. Okay, move on. But make
the value for us.
But make the decision and move on from it and make it quickly, as opposed to dancing around and waiting. And then everybody's now signed their free agent, but you still have the hope of the draft where all these people think Denver thinks, well, we don't want Justin Fields because we're going to draft somebody. And the Raiders say, we don't want Justin Fields. We're going to draft somebody. And we're going to get the guy we want. Even if they may not, we may get the guy we want. So we'll wait. Because we're not going to give up something if we think we're going to get the guy we want, and we don't want to get Justin Fields if we're doing a 1-year experiment and then bringing on our next guy either.
Yeah, the question is, the NFL, when you're talking about the NFL scouts and coaches, do they believe Justin Fields is a lost cause? And I do believe half the NFL just believes he can't play.
Yeah.
There is some evidence to suggest that he just struggles with pressure. Period. Since 1980, NFL quarterbacks in career sack rate who have a minimum of 900 attempts as minimum of the criteria for this stat. Justin Fields is dead as last in sack rate. In the last 43 years, he's dead last among all quarterbacks in the NFL in sack rate. And in the last 3 years, he's not only last in sack rate in the NFL, but he has the highest interception rate, I should say. So he's last in interception rate too. Highest interception rate, highest sack rate in the NFL in the last 3 years. And he's an elite dual threat quarterback in terms of his ability to run. He's one of the 17 QBs in NFL history that have led their team in passing and rushing. I really cannot understand how he struggles with pressure. You would think he would just abandon the pocket and run, and then that would lead to him at least getting positive yardage or reducing the sack rate. But he's a self-sacker, meaning a lot of the sacks are his own fault and his own responsibility because he doesn't know how to maneuver in the pocket. So that's a belief. And there's at least a quarter or a third of the NFL, they just don't believe in dual threat quarterbacks at all. They don't believe in quarterbacks that have dual threat ability can lead you to the promised land of ultimately winning a Super Bowl. And there is history to suggest that. The history would be only 2 quarterbacks who have rushed for at least 400 yards in any time in their careers have went on to win a Super Bowl. That was Steve Young and that was Russell Wilson. And that's it. So quarterbacks who do have that dual threat ability, they either don't make it all the way to the Super Bowl, they get injured, or it doesn't translate to playoff success, i.e. Lamar Jackson. So some coaches believe, like, man, I ain't never going to invest in a dual threat quarterback. Hell no. And we'll be talking about that with the Jaden Daniels stuff, which I think that's just more about the era of quarterbacks. I think now with more quarterbacks with functional mobility and now more dual threat quarterbacks, there will be another breakthrough. But I'll admit, it hadn't happened. And Lamar Jackson should have at least been playing a Super Bowl by now. Cam Newton got to a Super Bowl, never won one. I think it's gonna happen more, but I'll admit Russell Wilson and Steve Young being the only dual threat quarterbacks to really win a Super Bowl is pretty shocking considering how athletic quarterbacks have become.
It is, but I think it's also about, what system do you put him in and how much do you give him a chance to win where you're not game planning solely around their legs, you're game planning around their arm, but then they have the ability. If you look at what Patrick Mahomes does in the playoffs, he runs in the playoffs.
He does run in the playoffs.
He doesn't run during the regular season, but he runs during the playoffs. And so if you say he's averaging 30, 40 yards in a playoff game because he gets wide open and they put everybody downfield and he goes and does a quarterback draw or whatever else or sees something open and he'll run 3 or 4 times and they'll get 10, 15 yards every time. So you can say if you use a Jaden Daniels or a Justin Fields and all that and you say we believe we can put him into a system where the running is not their main option, where we're not trying to use him as a running quarterback for most of it, you think you can make it work a little bit better and then use it when you want to. But I think most of these guys, instead of really trying to focus on getting the passing game going, will fall to the easier plan, and they won't necessarily really try and cultivate the throwing game as much as they should.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. That kind of goes back to why people don't want to invest in dual threat quarterbacks. Yeah. Like, well, they're always going to rely on their legs. I need the quarterback to be a mature pocket passer and then the legs to be the second option. So turn something where this young elite athlete at quarterback has used his legs to take him to unprecedented heights of success. And now at the NFL, they're going to tell him, I want you to make your legs your secondary option. Mm-hmm. And for a lot of them, psychologically, they just can't reprogram themselves to do it. Patrick Mahomes, as you pointed out, did do it. Now, Patrick Mahomes is also the best pocket passing quarterback in the league. Yeah. That helps.
That does
all
help.
Right? Best pocket, and with the best play calling coach in the league, too, with Andy Reid. That helps. But you're right. That's part of it, right? The natural instinct of these guys is they want to run because they're good at it and it feels natural and comfortable to them. Sitting in that pocket is uncomfortable. And how much are you willing to be outside your comfort zone? Steve Young decided, hey, this is who I want to be. I want to be a pocket passer. But he also had a Bill Walsh, right, that was helping him, and he had great offensive mind. So that is really the question about that. And I think for dual threat quarterbacks, ultimately, it's one of those things where they have a reputation right now for quarterbacks who can't break through. But we thought Russell Wilson did this, once they decide to become pocket passers and then make the legs the secondary complementary element to their pocket passing, that's when they break through. But how many quarterbacks have done that? Patrick Mahomes could be considered a dual threat, but he's never rushed for 400 yards in a season because, like you say, he don't run in the regular season. He's like, no, during the regular season, I'm in his pocket working. In the postseason, they'll make you defend the pocket passer and the scrambler.
Yep.
Which, yeah, is the ultimate nightmare. Okay, good conversation there. We come back, go behind the burn nose curtain. We're pondering one question. What's the strength of the roster right now? What's the best unit, position group, aspect of this Texas roster? And what's the weakest? What's the strength? And what's the weakness? We'll talk about that on the other side when we go behind the burn nose curtain right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming right back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about Apple leasing. If you're thinking that your car is a little bit too old, maybe it's a little run down, maybe the car's not big enough for your new lifestyle, for your new family. Maybe you've expanded your family. Maybe you got a new job and you need a new car that accommodates that. Whatever the reason, you need a new car. Maybe you just want to enjoy that new car smell. My friends at Apple Leasing, they can help you out. They have the ability to put you in any make or model vehicle that you want. The pros at Apple Leasing can help you get the price you want, the payment you want on the car that you want. And all it takes is one simple phone call or a click on Apple Leasing's website, and you'll get a quote on any make or model vehicle that you want. They can even give you the estimate of your trade-in right over the phone. And Apple Leasing's simple interest easy lease will make things simple and easy. It'll give you a lot more flexibility, which is going to give you more possibilities and options to help you find the vehicle that fits you best, but more importantly, the vehicle that fits your budget best. Right now, you may be in a bad lease. Well, my friends at Apple Leasing, they can get you into a better lease that will get you the more bang for your buck. Inflation is out of control. It seems like everything's overpriced these days, and that's why leasing makes more sense than ever. You're only paying for the part of the car you're actually using. So give Apple Leasing a call today at 512-346-9977. That's 512-346-9977, or go online at appleleasing.com. That's appleleasing.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Let's get to some Texas spring football discussion. Go behind the burnt orange curtain here. Texas will be starting spring football tomorrow, so we're less than a day away from the start of spring practice. I asked Patrick a question earlier, pondering, what's going to be the strength of this team, and we can talk strength and weakness. Like, what's the strength of it? What are you talking about? A unit? What are we talking about? An aspect of it? We're talking about a certain position group. What's going to be the strength of it? And I think after thinking it through, the strength, at least what I'm predicting, it should be the passing game. The passing game should be the overall strength. Last year, your passing game suffered because of pass protection at times, and Quinn Ewers' overall development, not getting deeper into his progressions, staring at pressure instead of feeling the pressure. Sark having to dial up those wide window first read, wide window throws too much of the time instead of having him, engage in straight dropbacks. I mean, the NFL wants to know on third and medium, on third and long, that you can do straight drop back and you can make the right decision and make the throw. Now, he can make all the right throws. Can he make the right decision? Remember, basically what Brock Purdy had in the Super Bowl, was it 3rd and 4?
Yeah.
That's it. The NFL wants to know, all right, 3rd and 4. They know you're throwing. Everybody knows you're throwing. Everybody in the stadium knows you're throwing. Can you go out there and make the play, put the cape on for this play, and convert it? We don't get enough of those from Quinn, and it's not because Quinn can't do it. Of course he can. He's got the arm to hit every blade of grass on the football field. But oftentimes, Sark doesn't really allow him to. 50% of the dropbacks for Quinn are play action passes. And then you throw in the RPO game on that, and you don't get a lot of just straight drop back in. By the way, you're trying to avoid those third and medium, third and long situations as much as you can anyway. So Quinn just doesn't have a lot of those kind of straight drop back opportunities. They want to see more of those this year. And when he has those straight drop back opportunities, they want to see him get deeper into his progression. That means past the first read into the second and even the third read in the progression. And in order to do that, you have to be able to maneuver the pocket. And in order to maneuver the pocket, you're going to have to feel the pressure and not see and stare down the pressure. And that's what leads to self-sacks. Getting back to Justin Fields, why he has the highest sack rate in NFL history as a quarterback, because people believe, even as a dual threat quarterback, a guy that can escape pressure with the best of them theoretically, and the reason he doesn't is because he's looking at the pressure. It's coming right at him and he's looking at it instead of feeling the pressure, which gives you the opportunity to look downfield and complete the passes downfield, get deep into your progression. And he doesn't do that well enough. And then maneuver in the pocket to find the space in the pocket, like a NBA player trying to create his own shot. You got to find those little pockets of space to operate. And he doesn't. And for Quinn, that's what he's got to do really well. He's got the ability to do it, no question. He's got to show more of that this year. But that's what held you back last year in the passing game too. So you got weapons in the passing game, just like you had last season. Pass protection should be better because you got 4 of the 5 offensive linemen returning, and you're going to add in what Cam Williams probably going to take over at that right tackle spot, and you're going to add in the growth and development of Quinn Ewers. So if I go positions and kind of the combination of them working in unison with one aspect of the team to be a strength, it would be the passing game. The passing game should be lethal this season. If it's not, one of those factors or variables regressed or didn't live up to expectation.
Yeah, and I mean, the question, I guess part of it's O-line. If they can continue to play at that level that they've been playing at, replace Christian Jones, they should be able to. And then, it really comes down to, can not only Quinn come back and play as well as last year, but play better than last year.
Yep.
And take that next leap forward like he did last season. If he can do that, I can't imagine that there's not the wide receiver talent out there. That doesn't seem like it's going to be the issue. So if you put all those pieces together, I think somebody else could surprise you of best position group, but the front runner has to be the passing game. The running game could surprise you. Because again, if that O-line comes out, and we know that they're big bodies too, if they're able to push guys around the SEC, you're able to get some good run games in the SEC, depending on how those defenses are built. Remember, it's also, you're playing against different teams this year than you've been playing for the last few years. So if you're able to get there, and then, young guys, CJ Baxter had good runs last year. What does he come back looking like? What is his offseason weightlifting program? Does he put on some weight where he's able to stay in the game and become an every down back? Does Jaden Blue take that next step? Does one of the freshmen come in and get some carries and really set them apart in that? where you're going to focus on that some more. That'll be interesting to see. And defensively, I think as a unit, they could be really good. But when you look at D-line, you could say the edge, but the D-line, interior D-line, is taking regression this year, which they were going to even if they had really good players, because you're losing Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, and those two guys were amazing. And then linebacker core will be okay, but you want to see them perform. Losing Ford is going to be a loss, so you've got to replace there. The DBs seem like they're going to be improved, but even an improved DB room is not necessarily a strength because they were your biggest weakness last season. So where does that secondary end up? I mean, I think it has to be the passing game of what you feel the most confident in spring. Where is the confidence level of all those places? If you said my confidence on a scale of 1 to 10 in the passing game is probably a 9, that the Texans will have a good passing game next year. And I can't put any other position group in that above a 9. No one's getting a 10, right?
Yeah, no, I just think it combines a lot of your strengths, right? You're deep at wide receiver.
Yeah.
Quinn is supposed to be, a Heisman finalist or one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Your O-line, you've been stockpiling it for a while. The big human is supposed to be a strength. The run game, I wouldn't be surprised if it becomes a strength, and maybe it could contend with the passing game, but you're going to go in the SEC, which is a line of scrimmage league, against tougher D linemen, bigger D linemen.
Yeah.
And I think that is going to affect the running game more so than it affects the passing. And be like, well, Robbie, you're going against better defensive linemen. Yeah, but the passing game is built off a lot of the skill positions on the outside and the quarterback position. Keep in mind, you're talking about disparity between lower levels of football and highest levels of football. It's usually on the lines of scrimmage, not the skill positions.
Mm-hmm.
I remember hearing Shedeur Sanders say, oh, no, man, I came from, playing at the HBCU level to Colorado. And trust me, skill positions, I got guys, I play with guys who are just as good as the guys I'm playing against in Colorado in the Pac-12. He said what the biggest difference is the lines of scrimmage. We just don't have big bodies, big humans that can move at the speeds that they have at the highest levels of football. That's the difference in SEC play. All right, there. So strength of the team. I think the weakness, just real quick, I'm leaning toward more tight end than interior D-line. I know everybody's like interior D-line. Tight end, when you think about it, you don't really have – if you look at your best players and the highest level, all right, of potential and the highest level of upside for your frontline players at any position, tight end probably has the lowest upside of any frontline players, because Alfred Collins and Brandon Bryden. A lot of people expect big things from them, and then the issue is about the rotation on D-line. But at tight end, you don't really have even the high upside necessarily, unless Gunnar Helm takes a huge leap and Amari Niblack becomes more than just a vertical threat in the receiving game downfield. Your blocking at your tight end position is probably below average to average. So tight end worries me a little bit this year in terms of potentially a weakness for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I mean, and I wouldn't say weakness so much as weakest. You know what I mean? The semantical term that I don't know if I think Amari Niblack and Gunnar Helm are going to be better than other. They'll be in the better half of the tight ends in the SEC, but I don't know if it'll be a step behind JT Sanders for sure. So if you look at all the other positions, especially on that offense, where everything else on that offense you really feel sure about, you feel good about the depth and everything else in that position. Tight end is much more a question mark because we kind of know what Gunnar Helm is, who can do a lot of things well, but not great. And Amari Niblack, I think, is going to have a ton of pressure on him right away because Texas fans and Texas coaches and everybody else is going to want him to replace JT Sanders and be this next great tight end for Texas. And we just don't know if he'll be able to do that. If he'll be able to get spring, we'll see him blocking, what he can do. I know it took JT Sanders a long time to care about blocking. Is Niblack going to be able to come in and care about blocking?
Yeah, no, that's just my opinion. I just don't think they have the upside of the positions do, but we'll see. All right, that's the spring football conversation. We'll come back. We'll go a little off the record on the other side here. Talk about some of the stories from the sports world, off the grid that may be a little wild, maybe a little crazy, a little off the record. Coming right back to Rodcast right here on the Horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let's talk about Dr. U, Dr. Greg Eckert, and his fantastic all-star team. Now, they call him Dr. U, but Dr. Eckert, that's what his official name is in the in the dental community. But we call him Dr. U, which is appropriate because he's all about you, right? He's a dentist that's all about you, making sure you, the patient, get the best quality dental care available. Now, you've heard us give the our testimonies about our experience with Dr. Eckert. I owe him a huge debt of gratitude. Had wisdom teeth growing in sideways. And my man, Dr. Greg Eckert, had to make sure they informed me about everything going on, but got those things extracted ASAP, ASAP. I was back at work within a couple of days, and now my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better thanks to Dr. U. As a matter of fact, I got to go visit Dr. Greg Eckert this week just to make sure that everything is going according to plan, everything's okay, which it is, and then I'll make sure that I keep up with my annual dental visits and those checkups with Dr. U. And you should do the same. So it doesn't matter if you have a dire situation like I had to have wisdom teeth removed, or if it's something a little bit, a little less serious, what like, just dental cleaning or just general dentistry, teeth whitening, maybe it's dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Greg Eckert and his team are all about. He even can give you a brand new smile in just one day, folks. I know it sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. It's a complimentary consultation to get you a brand new smile in one day. So you got nothing to lose but everything to gain. So reach out today, 512-345-3166, 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com. That's DRUECKERT.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for Off the Record. Off the Record, actually going to be quick here because we're up against it here. So we'll make it a quickie of a segment and get right back on time. We'll get into the Off the Record stories on the other side, and then we'll get into a lot of other different topics throughout the day as well. So that's all. That's my fault. Got a little too deep into the conversation last time in Raj Round the Day, and then pushed that into Behind the Burnout's Curtain. Great conversation. We pushed a little far. So what we'll do, we'll get back on track, come right back, and then we'll get into all the big stories, including the Cowboys losing out on Tyron Smith and the Texans trying to cook up a trade for Keenan Allen. We'll talk about that on the side and another Raj rant as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast coming up right here on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast featuring my man Patrick Davis, and lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Smooth Soul Monday edition of the Rodcast. That's when Patrick plays jams intended to relieve any case of the Mondays you may have. If you're stressed out about Monday, Smooth Soul Monday should get you in the right mindset. All right, should bring the right vibe, the right energy for a Monday. So we appreciate him. Also, you can thank Patrick for the big fat poll of the day as well. That is something we discussed on the text line 512-447-3776. Big fat poll of the day for the people out there, Patrick. Let them know exactly what it is.
Big fat poll of the day today. Who will be the first quarterback benched in the NFL next season? We're talking about that because Russell Wilson just got his backup in Justin Fields. And will Russell Wilson be the first one? Is it Daniel Jones in New York? Will Levis in Tennessee? Somebody else that we have not named right there in those top three? Who do you think it is? Tell us on the text line 512-447-3776.
I did read earlier Ian Rappaport say that Justin Fields had at least 4 additional teams that inquired about trading for him. But Fields' representation asked for him not to be traded to any of those other teams. He wanted to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. It says here in the Ian Rappaport report. And the Bears did right by him. That was a big talking point for the Bears GM, Ryan Poles, to do right by Justin Fields. He wants to do right by him, which I respect. I don't know if that's going to give you job security in the future, but he wants to do right by Justin Fields. So I guess that was a big part of why, the Steelers offered him a 6th-round pick. If, you're not going to make it a true negotiation and you're not going to use the bargaining leverage that you have by having other teams involved in this negotiation for Justin Fields, then if that's the case, then yeah, that makes sense to why it was only a 6th-round pick. I'm sure the Steelers got, I don't know if where they got the information, probably his agent, that he only wanted to go to y'all. So y'all don't need to, make them some crazy offer for, Justin Fields for a 2nd-round pick or anything like that. He only wants to go to you guys, and they want to do right by him. It's not like he had a no trade clause in there or something like that. They want to do right by him, and to do right by him, they wanted to trade him to a place where he had a chance. And I agree with the Steelers. He does have a chance. I'll give you a little nugget here about Arthur Smith real quick about Justin Fields and Arthur Smith. So Justin Fields, if you go look at it, he plays his best football in the pistol. Pistol is a modified version of the shotgun, not as far back as the shotgun. So kind of a modified version of the shotgun. And if you go look at Arthur Smith, he runs, or at least he did last year, the Falcons ran more pistol than anybody else. More pistol formations. Desmond Ridder led the NFL in pistol formation, and Taylor Heineke, when he played, he was actually top 5 in pistol formation. So that's Arthur Smith's bread and butter. He's now the OC with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And how about this? Justin Fields in the pistol. And this is actually 10% of Justin Fields dropbacks this season were in pistol. So not a lot of them. Small sample size. He just had 1 pistol drop back in his first 2 years, but they increased it a little bit in his 3rd year. Pistol formation plays, he's averaging 10.6 yards per attempt, 6.5 yards per attempt on any other type of set or any other type of formation. 10.3 average depth of target out of pistol is 8.4 in any other formation. If you go look at his adjusted off-target throws, only 11% targets are off. Only 11% of his throws are off target in the pistol. 19% off target in other formations. He's just a better player out of the pistol. I don't know what that is. Small sample size, and we're trying to extrapolate that. But I do believe that Arthur Smith and him may be compatible schematically. Just starting with that point. That he likes to work the pistol, and Justin Fields is really good in the pistol, better than he is in other formations. Throwing it out there. There you go.
No, I like that. There's hope for it, but again, he's the backup right now.
He's the backup, but they want him to play.
Oh yeah.
If Russell Wilson, there's a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson. If he's not winning games and being productive and scoring points, they're going to give Justin Fields a shot just because they want to see what Justin Fields has to offer too. And they want to see if he's got a little something.
If he acts up like last year's what he did in Denver, which is he put up decent numbers sometimes, but it was all in the second half. He had those Phillip Rivers numbers where you're down by 30. So Well, you put up 3 touchdowns. Like, well, none of them mattered though. And so
Agreed.
is he winning games? Because the numbers don't mean anything if you're not winning games. If you're turning the ball over, if you're getting a bunch of 3 and outs early, if you're not moving the ball, allowing your defense to be in a bad position, that's the reason you're going to get benched.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But yeah, I mean, it's the Justin Fields thing is really interesting. A lot of people just think he can't play. A lot of people think Kenny Pickett couldn't play. Remember Kenny Pickett? I'll give you a stat about Kenny Pickett, who was traded to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia is going to see if they can resurrect his skill set. Remember, Howie Roseman is calling Philadelphia a quarterback factory. He said that last year. He said, we're a quarterback factory. Which means they look at the quarterback position as kind of how I do. Stockpile as many quarterbacks as you can and let the chips fall where they may. Kenny Pickett has thrown a touchdown on only 1.8% of his passes in the NFL. 1.8%. That would be the lowest touchdown rate in the history of the NFL. Justin Fields is at 12.4% sack rate. That would be the highest sack rate in 43 years since I was born in 1980 in the NFL. So some people just believe that, hey, these quarterbacks are proving they can't play and they're a lost cause. And they are a lost cause. I understand that. You want to move on. But then I think there are other organizations that see that lost cause, one man's trash, another man's treasure, and they figure, hey, man, what if we can resurrect that? I do it all the time. In our neighborhood, we have a neighborhood, really nice folks, and this, Patrick. You put something out on the curb. Let's say you've done using it. All right, say it's a vacuum cleaner that won't work. Say it's a lawnmower that won't work. You can't fix it. You ain't got the skill set to fix it. Because Pat, you got a lot of skills, but you ain't Mr. Fix It out there. So you put it out on the curb here in the neighborhood, and somebody will roll by within 20 minutes, depending on what it is. If it's a lawnmower, or it's a vacuum cleaner,
washer,
depending
dryer.
on what it is. Yeah, exactly, right? They'll roll by within 20 minutes, come take a look at it, decide whether they have the skill set to fix it or they know a guy that can fix it, and they will scoop it up right off the curb. Boom. They probably won't, in my neighborhood, it won't be there. If it's one of those items that Patrick just mentioned, or I mentioned a lot, it won't be there 30 minutes. It won't be there 30 because somebody sees that. I saw it as trash because I can't fix it.
Yeah.
But another, and somebody else with a different skill set looked at it and went, oh, man, I can fix that vacuum cleaner. That's just missing whatever it is. Or I just got to tweak this or tweak that. Quarterbacks are the same way. There are a lot of teams that are putting these quarterbacks out on the curb, and there's Steelers are rolling by in their truck going, man, I can fix that. And if I can't fix it, it ain't cost me a damn thing. I can bring them in for nothing, and then it don't cost me nothing. So, hey, you know what? I might put it out on the curb too, but let me bring it home, see if I can fix it. And then if I can fix it, boom, I get great value. All right, now don't be a hoarder. All right, that's why just hoarding things at the house. That's bad. You don't want to be that. But I probably would. I would be a borderline hoarder at quarterbacks. I'd be bringing them in. I'd be taking everybody's scraps and saying, let's see if I can fix it. I might be able to fix it.
Yeah, I think if they got 4 quarterbacks that were all reclamations, that's hoarding. That's 4 is too many.
You can't fix all those things. Come on, man. None of them work.
Man, that is missing a leg. You ain't going to fix it.
That is a great point. There you go. They're all reclamation projects. That would be a problem. All right. So there you go. Steelers getting Justin Fields for pennies on the dollar, essentially just for a 6th round pick. It becomes a 4th round pick if he plays at least 51% of the games. Let's talk about the Texans and the Cowboys. We'll do that after we get to the Horn headlines. The Texans tried to make another move. Nick Caserio earning a nickname as a result of it. And the Cowboys, maybe they should have, I don't know, maybe they should have paid a little bit more money to try to keep this free agent, one of their own in Dallas. But we'll talk about that too on the other side. And we got Rod's around the day. So let's get it going. It's the Horn headlines with my man, Patrick Davis.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Equipment and Lawn Equipment and Rentals. Both men's and women's NCAA tournament brackets were set yesterday. The men's number 1 seeds are UConn, Houston, Purdue, and North Carolina. Texas received a 7 seed in the Midwest and will await the winner of Tuesday's Colorado State and Virginia game to find out their opponent for Thursday's first-round game in Charlotte. The Longhorn women earned their first number 1 seed since 2004, along with 1 seeds South Carolina, Iowa, and USC. Texas will start the tournament against Drexel on Friday. Texas softball finished off BYU in a doubleheader on Friday with a 7-3 win, followed by another run rule win, 10-0 in 5 innings to close out the series. They will be back in action on Wednesday for another top 20 matchup in Tallahassee against Florida State. Texas baseball lost their series to Washington over the weekend, 2-1, with a 4-3 series salvaging win on Sunday and a game shortened to 8 innings due to rain. LeBaron Johnson Jr. posted his best start of the season, pitching 6 innings with only 1 earned run and 10 strikeouts. However, a poor performance from the bullpen would cost Texas. And then on Saturday, Ace Whitehead pitched 7 innings in relief, only allowing 1 hit, but Texas could not rally in the game. Texas will take on Air Force in a mini-series starting Tuesday in Austin. In the NBA, the Spurs split their 2 games played at the Moody Center this weekend, losing to the Nuggets on Friday and then getting an overtime win against the Nets, 122-115, where Wembanyama put up 33 points, 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and 7 blocks. The Houston Rockets won their matchup against a struggling Cavs team on Saturday, keeping them just 3.5 games out of the play-in tournament. And the Mavericks knocked off the Nuggets with a Kyrie Irving buzzer beater, 107-105. The Mavs and Spurs will meet up on Tuesday. Finally, in the PAGA, Scottie Scheffler won the Players' Championship, coming from 5 strokes back at the start of the final round. Scheffler posted a 20-under on the tournament to become the first ever back-to-back winner in 50 years of the event. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you for the Horn Headlines, Patrick. We appreciate that. One of the things that was also one of the headlines coming out this weekend, Tyron Smith, he is going to sign a 1-year deal, kind of a 1-year deal with the Jets. That 1-year deal will be worth upwards of $20 million, but it is mostly an incentive-laden deal. That 1-year deal, at least based on the tweet from Pro Football Talk, it says that Tyron Smith will receive $6.5 million guaranteed of that $20 million, and then the rest of it, $13.5 million, will be based on playing time and incentives and, percentage of snaps he plays. The belief, or at least the report, was that he wouldn't sign with the Cowboys because they were offering a very similar deal. The Cowboys were offering an incentive-laden deal, and that as a veteran, understandably, he wanted more guarantees and more guaranteed money up front. This is a little bit surprising because essentially the Jets are getting him with an incentive-laden deal. And Pro Football Talk also expressed that the Jets were surprised he took the offer, meaning like, all right, man, let's make this offer. He obviously is not going to like it. All right, who the hell would like this deal? He's a guy that's been in the league, 10 accrued seasons, and we're going to offer him $6.5 million guaranteed on a 1-year deal. And, 3/4 of the deal essentially will be incentives. Let's offer that deal, and then he'll come back with he'll come back with an offer of his own, whatever. He'll counter, and then we'll give him a little bit more. I think they expect this to be the first offer and for him not to accept it, and they took it. They took the first offer, the kind of the low ball offer, which I think the Cowboys were low balling him. So maybe this is the situation where Tyron Smith was just a little butthurt. Little feelings were hurt by the Cowboys not offering him more guaranteed money up front. And he's like, you know what? I'll take a deal like that from another team. Is not insulting because they don't know me, and I ain't been with them for 10 years. I've been with the Cowboys for 10 years. I've been a bedrock of this team, and y'all don't want to give me a better deal than that. Of course, the Jets gonna lowball me. They're the freaking Jets. They don't know me. I haven't sacrificed blood. I haven't bled and sweat for that organization. I did for y'all. Y'all should offer me more guaranteed money. So is it that? Is it just a little bit of, I don't know, he just feels a little bit slighted or disrespected because of that? I have no idea why he took essentially what was being reported as a same type of deal the Cowboys were offering.
Well, and I mean, the Cowboys had him on that deal last year too, of a deal because of his injury issues, because he has missed so much time in the past 5 seasons that they'd worked that deal last year, that it was based on, a lower guarantee and incentive based. And the more games you play, the more money you make. But we can't guarantee you all this money because you're historically last few years playing 12, 10 games for us, and we can't pay you like you're playing the whole season. So it is surprising. There could have been, hinted at promises that he felt were made. There could have been, well, if you sign this year, then next year we'll have more cap room and we'll be able to get you something more guaranteed. But this year, let's do this. And then next year rolls along and they don't do it then. That could be part of it. It could be that the Cowboys really are saying that they were getting close to that, but they really weren't. That they were at a deal that was $5 million guaranteed and they could make it up to $12 million, but it really wasn't that deal where he has where if he's betting on himself and it could be 20 and the Cowboys top was 12 to 15, even if it's a little bit more guaranteed money, he may have said, well, I'll go take the more money. But when you throw in everything else, if they were comparable simply on the fact of having to pay New York taxes and New York living versus Texas Texas taxes and Texas living, which is
Good
no state
point.
income tax. You're losing
Good
a lot
point.
of money if you want to go do that and play in New York, if that's the same deal. So it's not only a 50, if we're saying, well, it's picking one or the other, you're losing money going to New York instead of Texas.
Yeah, you're right, man. That's a great point, actually. Depending on what their offer was in Dallas.
Yeah.
I didn't think about that, but you're right. And I'm sure that his agents and people have informed him of that kind of stuff too. So if I'm the Cowboys fan, I'm just wondering what the Cowboys options are right now. I guess option one, you could move Tyler Smith to left tackle and then shuffle things around from there. You could draft the left tackle in first round.
Yeah.
Just draft your future left tackle. You have that option too. Bakhtiari is out there as a tackle option, the former left tackle for the Green Bay Packers. He hadn't played a lot in the last 3 years, been dealing with injuries, but he could be what Jason Peters was for you, kind of your emergency tackle that you can move around potentially. But the Cowboys, they got some serious holes right now in their roster.
I mean, and we're not even talking about depth. We're just saying starters that they're short right now on offense. They're short a left tackle, a center, a running back. And a third wide receiver. They're short of all of those.
Michael Gallup's been released. Yeah.
Michael Gallup's been released. So they're short on all of those pieces right now. They don't have a starter for all of those 4 pieces, and you're now going to the draft. You're probably not getting 4 starters in the draft on a team that is supposed to win the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl or bust. And like that's where you're at. You're Super Bowl or bust if you're the Cowboys, right? We all know, yes. and not necessarily winning it, but making it to the Super Bowl or bust if you're the Cowboys. And you say we will draft 4 starters minimal, and that's just on the offense. That's not to say the defensive tackle position that needs help. That's not to say a linebacking core that you do get Overshawn back. You sign Kendricks, so there's a little bit more help in that linebacking core. But how much help is there really? Are you going to be able to do that? Your secondary is probably good. You'd like to bring in one more guy. You'd like to bring back Gilmore. But I could believe you're not going to draft him. I could still believe they bring back Gilmore. But I'll leave the secondary. I won't complain about that. But if you say you'd really like to get another linebacker, you need a starting center, starting left tackle, running back, and you need a third wide receiver. And that's not to put into depth of any of these positions. That, you're not going to be healthy for the entire season. You need depth. And now your offensive line depth is completely depleted. Because you are now trying to find starters, much less drafting a backup in the 6th, 7th round and hoping they work out. It's just so much based on hope right now that all this works out. And, well, if we don't get him in the draft and we don't get the best running back, we'll sign somebody. Well, who? Or we'll trade for him. Who? Who are you going to get when you're now on the back end and everybody knows that you need somebody? How are you going to win a trade when it is a desperate need for you?
Yeah. Now, hope is not a strategy, but the Cowboys – they do hope a lot. They keep hope alive with the Dallas Cowboys for whatever reason. So I don't know what their plan is, but like I said, I can't see it. I think they're going to get really busy at the end of free agency to try to fill some of those holes. And then I think in the draft, they have to be really busy, trying to make sure they stockpile as many picks as they can so they can fill some of those depth issues you brought up. The Texans are also trying to cook up a trade. Matter of fact, Nick Caserio not being called Nick Cook-Serio by a lot of Cowboys fans. So a lot of Texans fans, Cowboys fans call Stephen Jones Catboy. That's a little bit different. Not as complimentary as Cook Caserio. But Nick Caserio was trying to wheel and deal a trade for Keenan Allen. This was reported by multiple sources, including Aaron Wilson, Diana Rossini. It was reported that he offered a 3rd round pick and a pick swap to try to get Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen eventually ended up being traded to the Bears. The Texans wanted basically Keenan Allen on that last year of his deal.
Yeah.
He would have been at $18 million salary with a $5 million roster bonus. Aaron Wilson also reported back to that no other wide receivers were a higher priority than Keenan Allen, that there were reports that the Texans were interested in other wide receivers. He said those reports are false. They zeroed in on and targeted Keenan Allen because of his contract status and how much he would have obviously been paid and his value overall. And I think they also looked at his fit with the team.
Yeah.
Because he had over 50% of his snaps in the slot last season. 100 plus receptions in 4 of the last 5 years. So extremely productive, but not a guy that's going to cost you a ton. Another weapon, a veteran weapon for your young quarterback. And people believe because of that, now that fell through. That trade obviously did not happen for the Texans, but because of that, the belief is you combine that with the trade that Nick Caserio just cooked up, where they traded out of the first round with Minnesota, traded that pick to Minnesota in exchange for 2 second-round picks, one in 2024 and one in 2025. The belief is that Nick Caserio likes the wide receiver draft. He likes the wide receiver draft class, but he doesn't like it right at 23 where the Texans are drafting, because he thinks it's really, really talented at the top of it, but it's really deep toward the bottom of that wide receiver draft class. And he thinks if you're not going to get the top guys in that wide receiver draft class, then there's negligible difference between the guy you're going to get at 23 and the guy you would get at 42 or whatever it is, right? It's not a huge difference between those guys. The big difference is with the elite guys in this class in that wide receiver room. So the belief is that they want a wide receiver, but they're going to get one in the second round of the draft, or they want a weapon for CJ Stroud, I should say. Yeah. And they're going to get one in the second round of the draft at much better value than, risking it or rolling the dice with a pick at number 23 that's outside of their first round big board, meaning they may not even have a first round grade on them, because some teams only have between 15 to 25 first round grades. Nobody has 32 first round grades. And maybe you don't want to draft the guy in the first round who doesn't have first round grade. That's bad value. That's bad talent acquisition.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still going to be teams like, if you look at Seattle at 16, they're probably not drafting a wide receiver. If wide receivers fall down to 16, they don't have somebody else they want. Texans can try and trade up to a 16 and go get a wide receiver. There's people up there that may not be going. The Rams may not be looking for a wide receiver. The Bengals probably not looking for a wide receiver in that first round at 18. So the 21, the Miami Dolphins probably not going. So it depends on where you're at, that they could still trade back up into that first round at a place that's a little bit higher than where they were at, if a wide receiver falls down that they like, and if those teams there maybe don't find the guy they want, somebody they want already went. So, if wide receivers don't go early, other positions do. These teams that are already got 2 guys don't want to draft a third. The Bengals with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Seattle's got their guy. With everybody who's got their guys, you don't want to use that pick there. So you maybe call up and you say, well, we'll take 2 seconds, or we'll take a second and a first for next year, or whatever it is. It's for you to move back up into that pick, and then they can go get the guy they want. But it gives you more flexibility than being that number 23 and maybe getting stuck with it, where you are stuck at 23. You don't have value at that pick anymore. You can choose, if you want to trade back up, or you can keep the value that you feel that you just said at the second round.
Yeah, I like what you said about trading back up. People freaked out that, oh man, you're out of the first round, so now you don't have a first round picks. And like you said, you can always trade back in, guys.
Trade back up.
There are more than there are more than 5 or 6 teams that are willing to listen to you about trading back into the first round to get somebody you wanted. Yeah. So never doubt Caserio, as they call him there in H-Town. All right, we'll push the Raj Rant to the next segment. We'll get into Raj Rant. Also, I do want to talk about the college football playoff payouts that have been reported, the percentages of the payouts that have been reported. Money talks. And I think the college football playoff committee, they're telling you exactly what they think of every conference based on how much they're going to pay them if they make the college football playoff. We'll get into that on the other side too. Talk some college football as well, all of that and more. We'll return right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, coming right back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers here. Let me tell you, this is a great city. We all know it. Other than the traffic, right? There's not a lot to complain about here in Austin. It's great weather, you got great people, great music, great food. And one of the things that makes this city also such an aesthetically pleasing city and it makes it so unique are all the iconic landmarks around town. And as the city continues to grow, more and more of these landmarks are popping up, and it makes the other landmarks around town that have become so iconic and have become so legendary, it makes them stand out even more. And what you may not know is many of these landmarks around town were built by the skill and the craftsmanship in the hands of ironworkers local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and D. Carey Stadium. The folks at Ironworkers Local Union 482 right now are hiring over 3,000 people. They got a big project happening right here in Central Texas. And if you want to be a part of this prestigious organization and you want to be a part of what they do in this community, now is the perfect time. They're hiring over 3,000 people. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So become a member of Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that help shape the future of this great city. They don't go to the office. They're the ones who actually build the office. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity or you want a refreshing career change, how about becoming a member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local Union 482? Go online and inquire about numerous different positions. They got a lot of different positions open. There's an opportunity for you, something that you would be interested in if you're just thinking about changing professions, or maybe you're just thinking about a new challenge in your professional career, whatever it may be. Look up Ironworkers Local Union 482. It might be the place for you. Go online at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for Rod's Day. Really quickly, I wanted to get to this story about the college football playoff payouts. If you make the college football playoff, they've determined now what each school will be paid based on the conference that you are representing. And some people are upset about this, but to me, it makes perfect sense. The Big Ten and the SEC are each going to get a 29% share of the revenue from the college football playoff, so 29% for each, the Big Ten and the SEC. The ACC is going to get 18.1%, I believe it is. The Big 12 is going to get around 14.7%, and then they'll divide it up between the group of 5 schools. I believe they get like 1.8 million or something like that. It's not a very large amount, but essentially they're telling you that the SEC and the Big Ten, I mean, they are the schools. I mean, sorry, they're the schools and they are the conferences that matter. We're getting more and more to an Android and iPhone era of college football.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why, and I know it's obvious an unequal revenue share. And some people are saying, oh man, that's just too much of a disparity that the SEC and the Big Ten are getting, 58% of the revenue from the college football playoff. But if you look at network viewership by conference, for ABC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and main ESPN, this is from 2016 to 2023. SEC accounts for 33.3% of major TV network viewership by conference. The Big Ten accounts for 30.7% of it. So 64% of your major network viewing are those 2 conferences. So you can argue they're not being paid enough. Yeah. You can make the argument that they're not getting their revenue share. If you go look at, how about this? If you go look at the college football playoff college football playoff teams, New Year's 6 teams, and BCS teams. All right, since 1998. And you go look at the top 20 appearances in the New Year's, the college football playoff, and the BCS in bowl games. The top 20 all come from just 3 conferences: Big Ten, SEC, and the ACC. That's it. And if you go look at the amount of, I guess the percentage, I should say, total games played in the college football playoff, BCS, and New Year's 6 bowl games, 30.9% of those bowl games, the college football playoff, New Year's 6 and BCS games, were Big Ten and SEC representatives. So damn near 62%. So the argument could be made, like LeBron James and some of the NBA players with their max salary.
Yeah.
The argument could be made, I know it's a max salary, but they're not being paid enough.
Yeah.
The argument can't be made, Deion Sanders making good money at Colorado, but because they've seen a 50 to 70% increase in applications, the argument can be made he's more valuable than that and he's not making enough. That's the same argument I would make for the Big Ten SEC. I know it's a large disparity, large gap between what they're making and everybody else, but Patrick, they're actually not making enough, considering how they consolidate all the big brands in college sports.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to look at what the television networks, want, the two companies, the 2 brands that they want to associate with are the SEC and the Big Ten, because those 2 have worked with them the best. They've delivered the best packages and programming they've gotten. The ACC was funny. I saw the commissioner of the ACC was talking with basketball because of going through, and he was really trying to lay the case out for the ACC. And you can tell this is a guy who's been on a lot of phone calls with people not happy with him because he's not getting the money. And this just adds to it for the ACC, where these programs feel that they're more blue bloods and they've been around, and these are the East Coast schools that they've been around forever. They deserve this and they deserve that, and you don't, because you're not winning. You have to win at high levels. You have to be able to do it. And I know Florida State fans will get pissed off at that, which rightfully so. You can be mad at me saying you don't win enough, and you were like, we won all of our games. What do you want from us?
Every last one.
They have every right to be upset at that. But the reality is, you're winning in a conference that there's certain winners and there's a lot of losers. There's a lot of teams that just aren't playing at the highest level. Where in the SEC, you feel like the Aggies are a lower level team and they're spending bukus of money to try and be good. And the teams that, even if they're not competing at the highest levels, are spending money and are putting everything they have into trying to get better and better. And teams like Ole Miss in Tennessee that are not always competing are good programs that are working hard to get better at playing, versus when you go to the ACC and you go, well, it's Duke and they're trying, but is Duke really going to be that program? Are they really going to put all of their resources into football to try and get the wins there? And if they're not, then you're going to take a little bit less of a cut, because we feel in the SEC, that's where the money's going.
Yeah. If you are a group of 5 school, this new agreement is going to give you $1.8 million as a payout for making the Big Dance. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
sure.
wild. They're telling you right now you don't matter.
Texas is just happy and fine with moving to the SEC.
Yeah, because I believe right now their payout, if they make the college football playoff, between $21 and $23 million.
Yeah,
guys, they're telling you that you don't matter. that is basically college football playoff committee saying, "Hey, man, group of 5, you don't matter. We can't say it publicly, but look at what we're willing to pay for your product."
Oh, you just don't have the fan. Like, there's a reason. You
just don't. Right now, it's all about the eyeballs, and you can't bring the eyeballs.
I'm sorry, Liberty. No one knows who you are. I know you're a good program, but who knows where Liberty is?
I couldn't tell you. I'm not even.
That's my point.
I'm not even trying to figure that out.
And so that's why you make less money, is because no one has a clue where you're at.
That's exactly right. I have a theory. I think the NFL is showing their what's the word? Kind of anxiety and fear about dual threat quarterbacks right now. I remember when Lamar Jackson was, allowed to seek a trade, and they put the franchise tag on him with the Baltimore Ravens. And it wasn't that no team was willing to trade for him. I get that, right? I mean, the cost would have been really prohibitive, right? You would have to pay multiple first-round picks and then give him a new contract, which made him the highest-paid quarterback of all time. So I get why teams didn't want to do it. But remember how adamant teams were that they didn't even want to talk to the Ravens or talk to him about him. Like, they went on the record to publicly say, we are not interested. We are not interested. We would never be interested. Teams like Washington Commanders right now, teams like the Atlanta Falcons, who are just overpaid for a quarterback. And then Justin Fields being traded for a 6th-round pick is just crazy, because, hell, Justin Fields, like I said, at one point in his career, he led the Bears in rushing and passing. He's one of 14 quarterbacks in the history of the NFL, period, to lead his team in rushing and passing. And I believe he did it 2 years. Actually, I take it back. He did it 2 years, 2022 and 2023. So I do think there is a place in the league for Justin Fields. Do I think he could be an elite franchise quarterback? I'm not sure about that. But I think the NFL are showing that they have this stigma and reputation that they've placed on dual threat quarterbacks. And I think it comes from the lack of long-term ultimate success, which is winning a Super Bowl. You win a Super Bowl, then I think the NFL was a copycat league. They want to copy and replicate that model. And there's only been 2 quarterbacks, in my opinion, who have been considered true dual threat quarterbacks. And everybody's definition is different of a dual threat quarterback. But only 2 quarterbacks have rushed for at least 400 yards in a season at any point in their careers and won a Super Bowl. Russell Wilson's the only one to do it in the same season. So I think there is something about the dual threat quarterbacks who are over reliant upon their legs their entire career, having to deprogram and reprogram themselves to be pocket passing quarterbacks first, and then have their ability to run become their complementary weapon, when that's been their main weapon most of their careers. And it's just tough to make that transition. Steve Young has done it successfully, and we thought that Russell Wilson did successfully, but we may not even know if he did it successfully. If you go look at it, Lamar Jackson is probably the closest to him and Josh Allen at this point, the closest quarterbacks to kind of breaking through that stigma and reputation. But I went and looked at it. If you go look at there are only 3 quarterbacks there have been 37 quarterbacks to average 20 rushing yards per game since 1966. All right. So in 37 QBs to average 37 quarterbacks to average 20 rushing yards per game since 1966 have won a Super Bowl. But if you go look at it, only 3 of those 37 have won the Super Bowl. So excuse me, I got that mixed up. 37 quarterbacks have averaged 20 rushing yards per game since 1966. Only 3 of them have won a Super Bowl. Right? And those 3 are Russell Wilson, Steve Young, and Patrick Mahomes. That's it. Only 3 of the top 25 quarterbacks in rushing yards per game in the playoffs have won a Super Bowl. Same 3. Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, and Steve Young. So I do think ultimately, and I used to compare, having a dual threat quarterback as your franchise quarterback. It's kind of like dating a stripper. It's really exciting. It's really fun, but nobody really marries the stripper, which is the ultimate goal of most relationships. Nobody marries. They marry the stripper once she's become a nurse. They marry the ex-stripper. They marry the stripper once she's become a nurse, or once she's gone to, got a real estate license. Once she's moved on and she's an ex-stripper, then she gets married. Only 10% of strippers right now that are stripping are married, because it's hard to marry a stripper. That's a hard way to keep a relationship going, when she's got to go to strip club every night. And you can't introduce her to mama, because mama's gonna say, "What's she do for a living?" Like, "Oh, she's a stripper." And mama's gonna be like, "Nope, nope, get out now." But if she's an ex-stripper, you ain't even got to bring up the fact that she's a stripper to mama. You got to be like, "Oh no, she's a real estate. She's a real estate. Oh, she's a nurse." So when basically these dual threat quarterbacks, which is really fun because they run around, they make all these great, exciting plays like Lamar Jackson, but they don't have a lot of examples of long-term ultimate success, which is winning a lot in the playoffs and ultimately winning a Super Bowl. So a lot of teams, just like a lot of guys, they're like, "I ain't marrying a stripper. No, I ain't gonna date a stripper because it's not gonna lead to anything." It's like, I'm not gonna get in a relationship with a dual threat quarterback, because ultimately I want to win a Super Bowl, and they don't win Super Bowls for whatever reason. They won't do the deep dive study and research on why, and then they can kind of figure out how to tweak the model. But they just say, "Hey, we haven't seen it but twice, so we don't even want to think about it. We don't even want to entertain the possibility." And I think that's ultimately what the NFL is right now dealing with. They don't want to date strippers because they don't think it's going to lead to them accomplishing the ultimate goal, which is a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's hard to disagree with that right now.
No, and I think that there is a point of how they're used, dual threat quarterbacks that are used in a way of, instead of trying to develop the other parts of the game and then saying, well, you can run, but that shouldn't be your first thought. You should worry about that. And whether that's a player or the coaching or wherever it is, I equate it to extremely attractive people. Extremely attractive people can be very talented and smart and funny and have good personalities, but most times they don't, because they never had to learn how to do it, because they got through life just passing by being an extremely attractive person. And a lot of mobile quarterbacks get by on running. They never had to sit back and learn how to do progressions. They didn't have to work on all those drills, because they could get away with being a great quarterback in a college and high school level by being athletic. Now there are those beautiful, beautiful people that are also the smartest people and all that, and you can find them, but they're very rare. And that's the same as a mobile quarterback who can also throw the ball at a really high level and will win you a lot of games.
I love that. That's good. That's real good. That's damn good. You're right about that. That's true. Because it's a natural comfort zone to just rely on that strength, which is your God-given strength, which is, hey, I look good. Yeah. I look good, and I get better jobs because of it. I interview better because of it. I get the benefit of the doubt. They've done the studies to show that people who are attractive actually have a better quality of life than unattractive people. Yeah. They do make more money.
I would know.
Better jobs.
I would know, but I'm not.
No. I'm just saying. No, this is actually true. I've done the research. They get better jobs, but the only reason that unattractive people don't get the same minority support that other minorities do in this country is because nobody wants to admit they're unattractive, and therefore we cannot form a coalition of some kind like the NAACP or the National Association for the Advancement of Unattractive People, whatever it may be. We can't form an ugly people union or coalition, so there'll never be support and better rights for people who are unattractive, which, by the way, they need it because they are a discriminated against minority group, but nobody wants to admit they're that minority. That's the problem. Yeah. Admit y'all are ugly. We can get together, and then y'all can have a coalition. You know what I mean? And get some of y'all rights back.
No, those people understand. They've known if you tell them to go to a meeting with all the other ugly people, they're gonna be like, "This is a prank." There's no way that this is not a prank.
This is a setup, man.
There's no way. If you walked into a room and you would walk your whole life being the ugliest person in the room, and you walked into a room and you were the best looking, you'd be like, "Oh no, something's going terribly wrong."
That is true. You would know something was up. Like, oh hell no,
Yeah.
I've never. Look at this group. Something's up here. Oh, that's good stuff. All right, we come back. We'll wrap it up. Put in the oven. Play some Who Said That right here on the Rodcast. Coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis, the Idealionaire. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. The Idealionaire came up great musically themed day of the week for Monday. Smooth Soul Mondays to get you in the right mindset for Mondays. Mondays can be tough. You can have a case of the Mondays. He wants to make sure he relieves any case of the Mondays with a Smooth Soul Monday. So I want to thank Patrick for that. Also, want to remind everyone, go check out the text line. Great conversation there happening about the big fat poll of the day. Who you think is going to be the first quarterback to be benched in the 2024 season? I believe we came up with the Steelers are probably at that best situation.
Probably right now.
Russell Wilson being.
It could
right
change
now,
after the draft, but right now,
yeah.
Russell Wilson seems like he would be the first.
So that's a big fat poll today for my man Patrick as well. Go check out the conversation happening on the text line 512-447-3776. Hit us up via Twitter. It's Patrick Davis for Patrick. I'm at Rod Davis in the Twitterverse. Time for Who Said That? That's when we play audio, and based on the audio that's played, we're going to ask you to try to figure out who said that. They're always relevant. All right, Patrick, we got a little piece of audio here. Let's see if we can dial it up for the people and play Who Said That.
Is it time for you and Tom Ricketts to sit down to get back into their good graces?
Well, like I say, I'm a mature man. I think that it's a possibility that we can do that. I'm open. I don't have a problem with that. I have, like I said, I have a lot of misunderstanding in the past, but now I'm a real man. I feel great, so I recognize my mistake. So hey, why not?
Are you telling me that you recognize the fact that maybe you did do steroids?
This is like I say, this is not a question that I expected from you.
Oh, who said that? That was Sammy Sosa.
Oh.
Wow, this is not a question I expected from you.
Sammy Sosa immediately went back into where he speaks perfect English, and then someone goes, "So did you do steroids?" And he goes, "¿Qué?"
Yes.
No habla inglés, man. That's every time, and it's been like that for years now. That every time when they ask about steroids, he suddenly doesn't have words anymore, and he starts to speak like
suddenly
doesn't
he's no longer bilingual.
It's every time, and it's just one of those jokes of Sammy Sosa, that I've learned from my mistake. Oh, your mistake of doing steroids? Hey, let's not say that yet.
Whoa, I said we all make mistakes, and now it's like, can you admit your specific mistake?
Yeah, you know that when he said that too, he's like, I did just admit to it, didn't I? Like I just admitted to it 2 seconds before. Oh, I got killed in the cross-examination.
That is fantastic. That's great audio there. I did not expect that from you. It's like, well, you know what, Sammy Sosa, I think at this point you can admit it. You can just admit it.
Hey, look, everybody did it. All you have to say now is go, I did it because everyone else in the league was doing it. And the only way I could stay up with the rest of the league was to do it too. It was wrong. I apologize, but that's what it was. And everybody go, yeah, everyone was doing it.
And I'm saying American sports fans are pretty much forgiven all the guys who admitted they did steroids.
Yeah, we want you to do them again. Keep doing steroids. Baseball was so much fun.
It was fun doing that gorilla ball era. There's no doubt about that. All right. Thanks, Patrick, for everything you do, brother. You do a great job as always. We appreciate that. I want to thank all you guys out there for listening. Remember, we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same channel. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. Everybody have a great night. Treat each other right. Be kind to one another. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.